Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming to you guys with a video breaking down my top 50 TV episodes of all time. Alright, so I thought this would be a great time to do this video that I've been thinking about doing for quite a while here on the channel, but this will officially mark my 500th video upload here on the channel. So a pretty cool, achievement or kind of mark to hit now for me after several years here on the channel, of course. So yeah, kind of a cool achievement, and I thought this would be a great video to kind of commemorate that, if you will, and kind of put this one together for that occasion. So yeah, really looking forward to this one. It did take a lot of time to put together this list, so I'd love to hear what you guys think of this list, and of course yours as well. I know nowadays with streaming and the types of kind of binge watching shows, it's harder to pick out specific episodes of shows, and I think that'll kind of creep into my list here. You'll see a lot of shows probably from the 2010s range there, kind of mid 2000s time as well, because it would just seem like it was more catered to week, episode to episode, and specific episodes that kind of stuck out to you. So anyways, even if you have current ones, older ones, whatever you want to share, I'd love to hear from you guys on what some of your favorite episodes of all time are, and where they line up for you in some type of a ranking if you want to share that. And of course, these are only based on shows that I have seen. It's almost kind of a companion piece, this video, to the video I did last year breaking down the tier list, where I ranked every TV show I have watched. So you'll see a lot of, I've watched a few shows since then, since last year, but largely it'll be coming from that list of shows as well. So that means, if you look at something like IMDb top episodes list, yeah, there'll be some episodes that are not here, and some big ones that stick out because I probably haven't seen the show. So if you have seen those shows and you have seen those episodes, I'd love to hear from you guys and hear your thoughts on that as well. So yeah, really looking forward to talk about this one. And if you enjoy this video, please like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. And just one last thing is, I kind of had to narrow it down a little bit, right? So I did say it was really tough to make this list of 50 episodes. No honorable mentions. I didn't cheat at all. So there's just 50 here. But the biggest thing here is I only allowed 3 episodes. So a maximum of 3 episodes per the show, right? Per each show that I'm representing, if you will, in this list. So something like Breaking Bad, I could only pick basically my top 3 episodes from Breaking Bad. So like Sopranos, I only could pick my top 3 episodes from Sopranos. So that in no way is saying that there are not more than 3 episodes of shows like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad that should be in this top 50. But I wanted to make it fun, I wanted to have as many shows, as many episodes, as much variety as possible. And so that's why I capped it at only 3. So just wanted to put that out there. It does obviously make a big difference in my actual ranking, which, yeah, in reality would have probably at least 5 or 6 Breaking Bad episodes. It's my favorite show of all time, right? So anyways, that's what it is. But with all that being said, let's get into this one at number 50. Alright, so then at number 50, to start off our list here, we have Scandal, Season 6, Episode 10, titled The Decision. So if I'm being completely honest, there are other episodes. When I was putting together this list, it was really tough, like I said. There were other episodes that I thought could be included in a top 50. Maybe objectively speaking, they were of higher quality and all that stuff. But this episode, I really wanted to slide in here. I thought it was important because this was the 100th episode of Scandal, the TV show, and I thought this episode in particular did something really unique that I don't know like any other episode on this list. I was trying to think of like other shows. A lot of shows do a kind of 100th episode kind of thing, where they do something special, or maybe a character comes back that we haven't seen in a long time, or, something like that, right? Where they do something to commemorate that it's the 100th episode. Something like Suits comes to mind. I think they did something similar to that and brought back somebody, or brought back kind of a plot line or something like that. I think, was it titled 100? happened, that episode. But anyways, this episode was unique because it kind of went even further from that. Basically, the whole episode plays out as this kind of alternate reality, right? It's this main thing. I don't want to spoil too much because this is in season 6 of the show, but basically the main plot point at the very beginning of Scandal that kind of launches the whole plot of the show, and in particular the relationship between Fitz and Olivia, right? Our two main leads basically of the show, the main romance of the show, the main relationship. The thing that launches that is basically flipped on its head in this episode, and it basically asks the question of really the decision, right? It's Olivia making the other decision than what she made, and so it basically just launches this completely different reality, right? It's almost something like It's a Wonderful Life, right? Where it shows the, complete, other side of things if he wasn't if he wasn't alive, or if he wasn't in the lives of all these people. And so it's kind of a similar thing here with Scandal. And so they play out the entire episode like the alternate reality of, oh, well, what would happen if her and Fitz ended up together instead of what happened in the rest of the show? And, they have a wedding and all this stuff. And so it's these things that like we've wanted to see basically of the show. We wanted them to get together the whole time. And so it's nice to see these little payoff moments, but it's also just really cool as an episode to do something like that and kind of break the mold 100 episodes into the show at this point and show us something completely different, and kind of be able to see this other side of what would have happened if she made a different decision at the very beginning of the show. So I don't know. I thought this was unique. I thought it was pretty cool. When I watched it, I remember when I was watching it years and years ago, I think I watched this live when it came out. And I was just blown away. I've never seen something like that. And I'm not sure that I've seen something quite like it since. So anyways, I thought it was worth highlighting here at number 50. Next, then, at number 49, we have Eastbound and Down, Season 1, Episode 5, titled Chapter 5. So this episode, it kind of represents Eastbound and Down as a whole, I would say. I have a few little marks on that are coming up for shows that, I probably should have had more than one episode here on a top 50 ranking list. But I don't know. It's a lot of these comedies, right, that have just so many standout episodes, and it's like, I could have put a bunch on, but Eastbound and Down especially, to me, it's less about these individual episodes and more about kind of the season arcs. That's kind of a big thing with Danny McBride's shows, with Vice Principals and Righteous Gemstones as well. He really kind of plans out the whole season plot with all of these characters, and so just to highlight one episode seems a little reductive. But this one in particular is a great guest or cameo, performance basically of Will Ferrell as Ashley Schaefer, a great character in the show that kind of comes back here and there throughout the 4 seasons. And then Craig Robinson as well plays his kind of arch nemesis who comes in this episode. And there's just a couple scenes, I think the picture I have for this one highlights the one scene with Will Ferrell, Craig Robinson, Danny McBride, and all their characters are face to face, and it's this just kind of long kind of improv almost sequence of them three, and it is just so funny. I always go back to the clips of this episode and watch them. So just hilarious episode, hilarious kind of moments throughout it. Will Ferrell, one of my favorite comedians. I mean, I love all of those movies from the 2010s and 2000s as well. He's just so great. So, this episode, I thought, and just the episode as a whole really comes together well. It pays off really great at the very end when Craig Robinson's character, Danny McBride, kind of face off and kind of the chaos that ensues there. So, anyways, kind of a random episode in the whole 4 seasons of the show, but this one, really sticks out to me, and again, kind of represents what Eastbound and Down did so great, really, throughout its whole run. So that'll be at number 49 there. Okay, so next then, at number 48, we have What We Do in the Shadows, Season 2, Episode 6, on the Run. So, for any Shadows fans out there, yeah, you'll probably know this as the Jackie Daytona episode. Yeah, I mean, this is, to me, a top 2 episode. There'll be another Shadows episode in just a little bit on the list. But this was the second best to me of the whole run of Shadows that's now over with season 6. This episode just did something kind of crazy at this point in the show. We've seen since then, you know, I feel like each season they tried to recreate this episode where it basically just took us to a completely different setting and, you know, we put one of our characters basically in this new wild setting, right? And then kind of play out the episode, and it's just hilarious because it's kind of this fish out of water concept what we're working with. And then it's just kind of, you know, what happens from there, and we play it out with that concept. And to me, I don't think they quite replicated it as well. Something like the Wellness Center, that episode from season 3 also comes to mind. But this one, I mean, it really, the title of On the Run, so it's basically our character, you know, Matt Berry's character in What We Do in the Shadows, Laszlo, goes on the run and goes to this bar where he ends up becoming this bartender. I can't remember, is it Arizona, right? But he says Arizonia. And, you know, he goes by this name, Jackie Daytona. So, I mean, Matt Berry obviously steals the show in this episode. I mean, this is some of his finest work in the entire series. Just really funny. And so again, that fish out of water concept, him basically trying to play a human, even though it's painfully obvious that he's a vampire, obviously. And so it's playing with that concept. And then also you get Mark Hamill, I believe, right? Who comes in and is also a vampire, and then they kind of have to square off as well. So yeah, just a really fun episode, and to me, the best you know, way that they were able to use this kind of fish out of water concept and really kind of go for it. So, and you got to give them credit, right? Like, this was really going for it. It was a really out there episode. And, you know, at the time I remember, you know, watching it and hearing about everybody talking about it, about how crazy it was. And I think as the years went on, it really has, you know, been even more positively received with people going back and watching it again. So, love this episode of Shadows for sure. All right, so then next is number 47. We have Seinfeld, Season 2, Episode 11, The Chinese Restaurant. So, again, similar to Eastbound and Down, there are many Seinfeld episodes. I had at least 4, I think, that were kind of in the running when I was putting together the list here. And I had to cheat a little bit. Like, this has to represent other episodes like The Parking Lot, of course. Is that what it's called? Or The Parking Garage, right? I really like the episode The Red Dot, I think it's titled. There's a few other ones, right? Like just the classic all-time episodes of Seinfeld. And I'm not sure that I've actually watched the whole series all the way through. I think I've seen, I want to say like the first 4 seasons at least. But anyways, I've seen, and then even beyond that, a lot of like kind of major classic episodes of the show that everybody probably has seen at this point. But anyways, this episode in particular, the Chinese restaurant, this and the parking garage episode, just perfectly captured the whole essence of what Seinfeld was, right? Is the show about nothing, and it was just hilarious. Even though it was about nothing and really nothing actually happened in the show. And that's exactly what this is. I mean, the whole episode plays out of them literally going to this Chinese restaurant and having to wait for a table and not being able to get the table, right? Not being able to get in because they were so busy. And then, of course, you know, they start letting in other people who arrived there after them and had no reservations. And one of my favorite, you know, sequences of the episode, of course, is when George is, you know, we live in a society, right? When he tries to use the, what is it, the phone booth, right? Or the public phone there at the restaurant, and the guy butts in. We're living in a society. So yeah, again, that scene just in itself is a classic, iconic kind of moment in you know, TV history, I would say, even, or sitcom history for sure. And so yeah, just a really great Seinfeld episode, some really hilarious stuff, and it just perfectly captures, like I said, the show about nothing, because nothing really happens in this episode, but it's still really funny. So yeah, kind of cheating here a little bit, because it is a placeholder for many other episodes. Like I said, the parking garage would probably be a very close second to me. Again, an episode where pretty much nothing happens. They just get lost in this parking garage looking for their car. And again, one of the most, to me at least, one of the most hilarious episodes of a sitcom that I've seen. So really great stuff. Of course, Seinfeld, don't need to say much more there. Everyone knows how good it is. Okay, so number 46 then, keep it in the sitcom territory, we have The Office, Season 2, Episode 10, Christmas Party. So again, like Seinfeld, I am going to cheat here. This is a placeholder for many episodes of The Office, particularly Dinner Party, which was a very close second. I almost still put it at number 50 and had 2 episodes of The Office, but I'm going to cheat here a little bit. I do, personally, I like Christmas Party better, but I think Dinner Party is like, it's a 1A, 1B situation if I had to rank episodes of The Office. I mean, Dinner Party just so great, and I think both episodes are similar. Obviously, they're both named Party, but they're similar in the way that, right, like we get a major part of the episode, or the majority of the episode, basically, is the big group of characters, right, all in one room, and it's just kind of the conflict that arises out of that. And this Christmas Party episode, the Yankee swap, is just one of my favorite scenes in really all of TV. Like, it is just so funny. The first time I watched this episode, I could not stop laughing. Basically the entire run of the episode with the whole Yankee swap thing, I thought that was just really, really funny and just really great. Like Michael Scott, just that really capturing that whole character so well of him, not wanting to give up the gift, right? And then getting like the oven mitt, right, is one of the gifts, and he wants to give it away, and so he makes this rules of Yankee swap. So yeah, just a really funny one. But yeah, Dinner Party right there as well. What else? I mean, there's a lot of episodes, right, of The Office that you could talk. I mean, the finale obviously is a great episode too. Fun Run. Anyways, I could go on, right? There's a lot of great ones. But to me, I like Christmas Party the best, and so this is kind of my placeholder, if you will, for The Office, for many, many great episodes from the show there for sure. Okay, so number 45 then is our newest episode, I think, by far on this list, and it is House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 4, The Red Dragon and the Gold. So, yeah, this is literally from, 2024, so last year, from when I'm making this, only, like, less than a year, actually, like 6 or 7 months ago. But I had to put it in here. I really did. Like, maybe it's recency bias. Maybe in a couple years I'll look back and, yeah, maybe that was high. Maybe that shouldn't have been in that list. But it was my favorite episode of TV last year. I just think it's such an achievement. I mean, and people have said, like, it really rivals a lot of the best of Game of Thrones. Obviously, you'll see Game of Thrones a lot higher on the list here as we go on. But yeah, I think it's comparable for sure. I mean, it's a great payoff episode for what we've kind of been leading up to at this point. Obviously, we would have liked to see a little more of the payoff in Season 2, but this was certainly really satisfying, right? To see this, the Battle of Rook's Rest, right, play out. And to me, I think the strongest point of the episode is kind of the double twist, right? Basically the first twist that we get is that, Aemond is kind of waiting for Rhaenys, and so it's kind of this ambush scenario at Rook's Rest that we get. And that's the first twist, and you're watching the episode and you think, damn, like, that's crazy, right? Like, that's a crazy twist. What's going to happen next? And so you're really enthralled in it. And then they pull the double twist, right? And then the double twist is that Aegon is also coming to Rook's Rest and is joining in on this battle with these dragons. And it just obviously what ensues, and the ending of the episode, unbelievable, right? So yeah, I just, the whole episode really, and don't want to spoil too much, but a great character death in the episode as well. The direction, obviously, just from a technical standpoint, really impressive. The effects work with the dragons look so good. You got to give a lot of credit there. So yeah, just a really great episode that all came together really well. And the double twist to me really sealed the deal. And I don't know, I don't know if Game of Thrones, obviously, Reigns of Castamere, which you'll see up on this list, spoiler alert. There's some other episodes of Thrones for sure, but I think this is definitely up there in terms of that kind of twisting that and that suspense. I don't know. I think that's pretty unmatched in TV. So really got to give a lot of credit to House of the Dragon there. What a great episode of TV at number 45 there for sure. Next, at number 44, we have What We Do in the Shadows, Season 1, Episode 7, The Trial. So to me, this is the best episode of Shadows throughout its run of 6 seasons now that it's ended. To me, this just perfectly captured the best of Shadows, really. And obviously it's based off, the original movie with Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. Behind that one, they starred, wrote, and directed, I believe, that original movie. And so obviously they were really involved at the beginning of the show as well. Taika kind of left, I think, after season 1, and then Jermaine left after season 2. But at this point of the show, they were very involved, and the tone... and I mean, literally Taika's playing a character, I think, in this, or playing the same character rather, in this season and in this episode. So, you see the overlap. And so the tone of that original movie was really captured here. And just, yeah, I think it's just a really well-written episode. Like the concept of putting the vampires on trial, having, Guillermo having to kind of come to their rescue, right, and save them from this trial. Just in that, hilarity ensues within that concept alone. But that it's also the actual scene of the trial playing out with all these cameos from Wesley Snipes, Evan and Rachel Wood, and Tilda Swinton, and just all these kind of characters, right, that are played vampires in other media, right, in other franchises or other, movies and shows. I think they have somebody from True Blood in there too as well. But anyways, and so it's all this kind of inside joke, right, is that all these cameos of all these actors are all in this one room of this trial, and they all just happen to be, actually real vampires, right? Like they were playing characters, but now they're actually in this world real vampires. And so, they're of course the judges on this trial now of the vampires. And so to be able to get all of these actors and actresses, to film this scene, I'm sure, they did it in different parts and kind of edited them in. I doubt that they were all in the same room. I mean, in fact, they literally have Wesley Snipes on a Zoom call, I think, to make, to put him in the episode. It's really funny. So, yeah, just to get all those actors, to be able to get them in this one scene, and then just to write the stuff. I'm sure a lot of it was improv as well, but just really funny. Like, this is, the greatest stuff from Shadows came from these kind of inside jokes that were kind of referencing real life and kind of trying to bake that into what was going on in the story with our kind of fictional characters. So yeah, just some really great stuff, and I thought this episode was so great at the time, and as time has went on, yeah, to me it's still the strongest episode of Shadows in its run. So yeah, can't say enough about that episode, and What We Do in the Shadows in general, obviously. Really great stuff there. Okay, number 43 then. Next is Mindhunter, Season 2, Episode 5. And I don't think they actually had titles for Mindhunter for episodes. So I guess the title is just Episode 5 or Part 5, whatever. But this was the Manson episode that they finally basically interviewed the big bad, if you will, or kind of the biggest figure, really, that the whole show was leading up to is Charles Manson, right? And he is, the whole show is about them interviewing serial killers, building this profile. And so to have Holden Ford, right, played by Jonathan Groff, right? I think that's, yeah, Jonathan Groff, the actor, and then Hole McCallany playing, his character comes in, and so they together finally go and interview Manson, and what a performance by Damon Harriman, just amazing. It's funny because within the same year, he played Manson in this episode of Mindhunter, and then also played him as well in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's film. So I don't know if that was like coordinated or not, or like they just somehow casted him in the same role for both projects. I'm not sure, but they came out within months of each other, and it was kind of funny. But he did an amazing job in this episode as a Manson, an amazing performance. And then we also get Ed Kemper as well in the first part of this episode. Cameron Britton, great performance as Kemper in season 1, and so we kind of get him returning this episode. And just the whole episode comes together really well. Besides these interviews, obviously with these serial killers. So I think just if Mindhunter doesn't even have another season, which is tragic, really would like to get another season out of the show, even though I think the end of season 2 kind of trailed off a little bit to me. But even if we don't get any more from Mindhunter, I think we'll still look back on an episode like this one, or just basically the scene with Manson, and say, wow, like that was really good television. That's kind of an iconic moment to see that put to screen like that. And so I think it's the perfect episode that kind of represents the best of what Mindhunter did, which is, obviously the interviews were great, but it's the other stuff as well, that's going on in the episode. I think this is also the big one where Hole McCallany's son is implicated in the crimes that are going on as well, and that whole storyline. So just a great episode overall, and the Manson scene definitely the most memorable from this episode and from the season of Mindhunter for sure. So really great episode there, and definitely had to highlight something from Mindhunter here. I'm sure there were other episodes that were probably deserving here. I think the season 1 finale is great as well, but I only went with one, and so this is kind of representing Mindhunter there. Okay, so number 42 then is The Righteous Gemstones, Season 2, Episode 9, titled I Will Tell of All Your Deeds. To me, this is the best episode of Gemstones that we've gotten so far. Fingers crossed that Season 4 will deliver us something even better in its final season coming up in just a week or so. But this is just the ultimate payoff episode in a Danny McBride show. He's so great at this. In every season of Gemstones so far, Vice Principals, Eastbound and Down, they always do a great job of, Vice Principals was kind of a 2-season arc of a story, but even that season 1, like that finale, the payoff in that episode is so satisfying and really just ties up everything that they were building to throughout that season. And this is no exception. I think it's the best example of that, is just everything that has been building in season 2 all comes to a head, and it's like a 42-minute episode or something. Like, it's usually 30 minutes, right? So it's a longer episode here of Gemstones, and it's just so much packed into this episode. We get the kind of tying up Eric Andre, who is the great guest performance in the season, kind of playing the villain of the show at this point. And so we get his storyline tied up, and we also see really the whole mystery of the season. Basically, the answer of what actually happened at the beginning of the season is played out. We get a great, like I said, tying up Eric Andre's storyline. We tie up Eric Roberts, who also started this season. His characters kind of all tied up. Like, just everything just feels so complete and so great. So many great action sequences in this episode too. On the beach, I'm thinking of, there's a great sequence. And then, of course, the ending sequence of the episode where they're at this little cottage in the winter. Oh, so great. And the wolves come in. You have to see the episode. It's a typical Danny McBride payoff episode where things just get so chaotic and so bloody and so violent, and it's just really great. So I have to highlight that one. Season 3 had some really great episodes. Season 1, obviously, great episodes, but if I had to pick one, this was going to be it. So great episode to end Season 2 with the finale here of The Righteous Gemstones. And like I said, who knows, right? Maybe after this next season airs, I'll look back and think I was a an idiot, right, for not including season 4 on here and an episode from there. So we'll have to see. Really hoping for some good stuff there. All right, so number 41 then, to cap off our first 10 films, 10 episodes here, is going to be Stranger Things, season 1, episode 8, titled Chapter 8, The Upside Down. So a great finale to me. I still would argue that it's one of the best seasons of television ever made. The show itself, I think, has kind of had diminishing returns over time. I do think season 4 was probably the best season next to season 1, though. Great work there. But yeah, what a great season of television. Obviously not the most original take, right? It's very much in the vein of kind of a Goonies. A film like Super 8 comes to mind as well. I think J.J. Abrams made that film. But yeah, lots of examples, right, of this kind of thing. Even It, right, Stephen King's It, very similar thing of, young kids having to band together against this monster that only they know exists, and kind of the adults don't believe them. And so they're kind of, off on their own to defeat this thing. And so, not the most original, but I just, this first season just felt so authentic, so real, and just had a really great vibe to it, where I think the other seasons kind of lose that a little bit and kind of get too wrapped up in kind of the pop culture phenomenon of what the show has become. And I think this show was really grounded, and a lot of these characters just had a lot of charm to it, where, I think you see that in moments of later seasons, but it's just not quite the same. But anyways, this particular finale is just, like I said, about payoff with the Righteous Gemstones. This is just so much payoff in this finale of 11, defeating the Demogorgon and then kind of banishing it right, back into the Upside Down. And also a great kind of finale that kind of left things open enough for a season 2 that we would later get, of course, with kind of, the gate to the Upside Down still being open, and, or possibly being open. And so, of course, then it opened the door, and so then we could see more, stuff that comes from the Upside Down. So, in season 2, of course. So, yeah, just a really great episode, I think, to tie things up. And I had to put something here from Stranger Things. Season 4 has some great episodes as well, but, for me, I think season 1 is an all-time season of television. So, what better way to highlight it and discuss it in this list than picking the finale, which is just a really great payoff and a really great way to conclude that season. And of course, them, rescuing Will, right, to see him still alive and then being able to rescue him. Just really great stuff in this episode. So definitely a little nostalgic even, right, to look back on this. I think it's I want to say 8 or 9 years old now, right? This episode, season 1. So it's wild. But anyways, a really great episode of TV to cap off our bottom 10 here. All right, so at number 40 then, into our top 40 here, we have Mad Men season 1, episode 12, Nixon versus Kennedy. So this was a great episode of Mad Men. Of course, as I said before, I have my 3-episode max rule for each show, and so, of course, Mad Men has 3 episodes here on this list, so this is the first of 3, and I really wanted to highlight this one because maybe there might be, again, objectively better, quality-wise, right, better episodes of Mad Men to put on this list, but I think this one is a perfect example of, to me at least, what I thought Mad Men was so great at. And it was, obviously it's a period show, and so their ability to depict events, right, historical events like the Nixon versus Kennedy election, right, and to kind of put these characters in the events, right, and so to make it have some stakes to our actual, plot line, and these characters that we've been following, and to be able to capture kind of the essence and the kind of feeling of the moment, right, in these episodes, something like Marilyn Monroe's death, right? That is an episode, another episode of the show. And what else? There was that flight that went down, and so they depict that whole thing in an episode of the show. They do a really great job, of basically capturing the milieu, right, of the moment. of these events. And to me, I think this is the best episode of doing that with this Nixon versus Kennedy election because, and I can't remember now, I think it's Nixon that they are representing, right? Is their like client, right, at the advertising agency or the firm, right, of Don Draper and them. And so they actually help him with his campaign and the marketing, right, of his campaign. And so they have a big, the stakes are really high, right, in the event. And so the whole episode is them, at the office, watching the election, watching the results come in. And we're, invested with them to see the result of the election, even though, of course, we know what happened. But we're there with them, right, in the moment. And so it's not just like, some shows or movies where, it's like, oh, they just see it on a TV and this event is happening, right? Oh, the JFK assassination, too. That's another episode of the show that's just really great. And so it's not just, like, oh, there's a TV in the background playing this event that happened at that time. Like, no, it's we put our characters in the shoes of people at the time so we can follow them as they experience this event firsthand, and then as that, through that, we can revisit that event through the kind of period piece. So anyways, I just like it's a really great episode. I also love the dynamics between Pete and all the kind of younger guys, right? At the office. To me, that was some of my favorite stuff in the first 3 seasons of the show, which obviously kind of changes up after that. But that kind of group of guys I really loved, and the banter back and forth, and them at the office all watching the election together. I thought that was just some really great moments in that. So yeah, one of my favorite episodes of Mad Men, and to me just really captures what they did so well, so often really in the show, in capturing those events, those kind of big history or big moments in history for sure. Okay, number 39 then is going to be another new episode actually, and that is Barry, Season 4, Episode 8, Wow. So this is the series finale of Barry, and this was 2023, so just a couple years ago now, or not even, and I just thought this was one of the best series finales that I've seen for a show ever. I mean, really, this is up there, obviously it's not, in the conversation with Breaking Bad and stuff like that. But I thought it was just really great. I think the payoff, again, talking about payoff, you'll hear that a lot with a lot of these episodes, but was just really great. I mean, basically the whole show, and especially season 3 and 4, kind of build up to this point with our main character of Barry. And so I think, the first half of the episode is kind of actually tying up all the side characters, really, like NoHo Hank, and, his Cristobal, right? his lover's statue is in that scene, right, with NoHo Hank as him and the Raven, right? Stephen Root's character, Fuchs, and they kind of have that battle sequence. And so that kind of really neatly ties up their storyline, which is amazing. Just the absurdist comedy and the action of that sequence is just obviously really great. Something that Barry did so well throughout its whole run. And then the later half, the latter half of the episode is really tying up Barry's storyline, and another just really satisfying end to that story. Don't want to spoil too much, but just a satisfying end to that character and to that storyline. And then the ending sequence of the show, of this episode, is just brilliant to me. It's just really great. Again, some of the best stuff that Barry was able to do is comment, on the kind of on these kind of meta things about maybe movie making, even just social commentary about other things. But in this case, they're kind of commenting on the kind of based on a true story thing, right? That happens in Hollywood, where they take a story and it becomes so twisted, right, that a lot of the facts, it's basically just a complete fictional story by the time they're done with it and the time that the movie releases. And then you find out that all of this stuff is just completely made up and it's just a lie, right? So obviously they take it, they exaggerate it, right, for the comedic purpose of it. And it's hilarious the way it plays out, but it's also pretty true, right? It's a pretty effective criticism or comment on that whole thing. And so I just think that's also brilliant that Bill Hader is able to, make that kind of commentary, but also fit it into the show seamlessly and make it really, really funny. So, yeah, just a really satisfying end to basically every character. I had like maybe one nitpick about the episode and just the ending for Fuchs' character, but other than that, a perfect, flawless episode to me, and one of the best series finales to me of at least of the last decade or so for TV shows for sure. So really great episode of Barry. Number 38 then is Westworld, Season 1, Episode 7, titled Trompe L'Oeil or Loyal. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce. I think it's French, but anyways. This episode is on this list. It is a good episode overall. I think it is a great one. There are some other events and things that happen in it, but it's specifically here for one sequence or kind of one, it's a little more than a scene, right? So it's like a kind of a long sequence there at the end of the episode. But to me, this is one of the best twists that I remember seeing in TV history ever, before this and since. To me, and I know some people now that I've seen online, and I don't know if this is just like revisionist history and people in hindsight saying that they knew it or they saw the twist coming. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if they actually knew at the time, but anyways, I watched this, I think, like a few months after it came out. I did not watch it live. And so anyways, but I watched it and I did not see this twist coming at all. I mean, basically the whole concept of Westworld, right, is that we have hosts and humans, and the whole thing is that these humans get to go to this amusement park, basically, and experience these hosts and live in this, Western kind of simulation, right, and, do all kinds of things, right, like have sex with strippers and get in shootouts and, all this stuff, right, and so the fact that they are able to twist this in this episode. We're 7 episodes in, and I don't want to spoil it, I guess, if you haven't seen Westworld, and I want you to have this same feeling that I did, but all I'll say is they blur the lines between hosts and humans, and to me, I think that's really like the whole concept of the show, really, right, is them commenting on this kind of conscious, like AI consciousness, right, like what happens when these hosts do gain consciousness, right, and then if that happens, what is the difference between a human and one of these hosts, right? Or one of these artificial technology or artificial intelligence. And so anyways, again, I don't want to spoil too much, but towards the end of the episode, absolutely insane twist. And I remember, like, I saw this episode probably, in 2016 or 2017? We're going back, like, probably 8 years now about, and I still remember, like, the feeling I had in that moment watching the episode, and I was just, my jaw was on the floor. I could not believe that. And then, immediately, right, you think back, you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. How is this possible? And then you look back, and it was just really, really well written the whole way through. There were little signs along the way, but nothing to kind of tip you off. And I don't know, I just think there was brilliant writing from Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy to make that twist happen. And like I said, some people say now that they saw it coming or whatever, but I don't know. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. But to me, I did not see it coming. And to me, still one of the best twists in TV history. So yes, the episode as a whole is great, but mainly that one sequence and that element of it, to me, I won't ever forget, I don't think, in TV history and in the way that I look at the TV shows I've seen. So really great stuff there from Westworld. Of course, there is another episode of Westworld on this list, and spoiler alert, it is not from the later seasons of the show. Yikes. Anyways, so number 37 then is the first of 2 from this show. It is Black Sails, Season 4, Episode 3, and they don't have titles, they just go Roman numerals, so I think it's Episode 31, I guess, right? XI, right? 30, I think it's 31. But anyways, this episode, I put these 2 together actually on this list purposely because they're very similar. Yes, again, like the Westworld episode, yes, this episode is a great episode of TV. There are some, other things that happen in it that are really great. Even just the battle sequence that leads to what I'm about to talk about is a really great sequence, some great action, some great, set pieces there, just some great work. But the main thing I want to talk about in this episode of Black Sails, and I think it's towards the end of the episode after this battle sequence between Blackbeard's crew and Woods Rogers, right? So Rogers' crew then, and it's kind of this battle that ensues between them. And I don't know, man. I've seen all the way through Game of Thrones. I think a lot of people would agree that, some of those gruesome, just unbelievably insane, things that have ever been seen in maybe movies or TV were seen throughout the run of Game of Thrones. But I think this really gives it a run for its money. I think this is the most insane, kind of memorable, for the wrong reasons, right? So basically the sequence plays out. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but a character in the show, something happens to them. It is an elongated sequence. I want to say about 10 minutes long, and it does, result in their death. And it is the most gruesome, torturous, graphic scene of just you want to turn it off, but it's also really compelling as well. And it also has kind of hope that this character might survive this, even though it's unbelievable what is happening to him. And it just repeats over and over and over. And it's like each time you still have a little bit of hope that this character might live. And at this point in the show, this is a pretty beloved character, right? He is, you want to see him live. He's one of our main protagonists at this point. And it's just, time after time after time, and you think there's still some hope until the very end, of course, when he does meet his demise and he finally dies. And yeah, it is just one of the most memorable sequences. I don't think I'll ever forget it. Again, similar to Westworld, I think that's one of the best twists in TV history. This, to me, is the most memorable, kind of gruesome thing that I've ever seen in TV history in this episode of Black Sails. It is truly remarkable what they... And that's the thing, yes, it's one thing to show gruesome stuff and to show the sequence, but the way they do it, right, I think is the real thing here that I want to highlight, and it's just so effective, like I said, in leaving that little bit of hope in you that, oh, he might survive this. He might actually live this, and just bringing that hope back each time and building that tension as the scene goes on. It's insane, and the acting here is really great. Again, I would shout out the actor, but that kind of spoils, what happens. But anyways, really great stuff here in Black Sails. An unbelievable scene and a really great episode of TV. Okay, number 36 then is The Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 12, Better Angels. So this is the first of 3 Walking Dead episodes, and yeah, I'm probably a little biased, obviously. I do think Walking Dead has some great episodes, and they definitely belong here. But yeah, I'm a pretty big Walking Dead fan, and so obviously I had to have at least 3 episodes, according to my rule, in this list. So this one to me is the third best. I'll have 2 more here on the list coming up just shortly here. But yeah, I mean, as a Walking Dead fan, as a big Shane fan, as a big Season 2 fan of the show, this to me is really the ultimate kind of payoff, or the ultimate kind of conclusion, really, to the first part, or the first portion, really, the first chapter, if you will, of The Walking Dead, and really of Rick's journey, our main character, in what happens. And I guess I'll spoil this a little more because Walking Dead's such a big show, and I think, everybody knows this. But Shane's death, right? Shane is killed in this episode by Rick, and the whole episode is just really great, just beyond the whole ending sequence, which is basically the most memorable or the most iconic part of this episode. The whole thing is really great, and just a really great lesson in how to build tension, because the whole episode, Shane is basically leading, the whole thing is Shane leading Rick out into the forest away from the other people so that he can get him alone. And you kind of know this fact, right, as a viewer, and then you kind of feel like Rick is sensing it as well, and he figures it out about halfway through the episode what Shane is doing, but he doesn't say anything about it, right? Because it's this, you could cut the tension with a knife in the air, right? It's just so tense, neither one of them wants to say it out loud or wants to kind of relent in this kind of back and forth. And so then, of course, the whole episode, about 30 minutes, right, has been building this tension and this dynamic between these two guys that are best friends who have now become bitter enemies. And you know, as a viewer, at this point in the show, and just the whole way that Shane has built this scenario up, you can't, like, this episode cannot end with these two characters both alive, right? And so you get that sense, you recognize that, and it's then after that point that then the sequence of the end of the episode plays out. Absolutely brilliantly directed, I think. The acting is on another level from John Bernthal and Andrew Lincoln. And the scene, it's emotional. Like, it really is Rick having to kill Shane, you know, his best friend. And in that moment, it is just insane. And then, of course, you get the end sequence where Carl, you know, finds them. And he raises the gun to Rick, and you think for a second that he may actually kill his own dad because of his love for Shane. And how attached him and Shane have gotten, and how much they bonded. And instead, of course, he, you know, shoots Shane as a walker, and he saves Rick, actually. He saves his life. So yeah, just an amazing end to that episode. I could go on and on about anything Walking Dead, of course, but yeah, to me, easily a top 3 episode. And to me, like I've said many times before this, though, again, maybe you could find other episodes that maybe objectively were just more, you know, payoff or more action in them. But this episode is just, to me, like I said, the ultimate end, or really almost the ultimate beginning to the show in terms of Rick Grimes as a character and what this does for him. It really completely changes the outlook of him and just the show in general going forward. Just such an important episode that plays out here. So really great stuff there from The Walking Dead. Okay, number 35 next is Barry, Season 2, Episode 5, titled Ronnie Lily. So I think this is the highest comedy episode. I mean, obviously, there's other episodes here that are, you know, funny, have comedic elements, but I think most of them are dramas. This is, I think, yeah, the last just straight up comedy, even though, I mean, Barry, you could say it's a drama too, obviously, the later seasons for sure. But anyways, I think it's the highest comedy episode that I have on this list. And this, to me, is probably the funniest episode of TV that I've ever watched. I don't know, like, you know, episodes, like I've said, like Seinfeld, The Office, you know, there's some episodes in there that I'm just dying laughing, right, watching these episodes. But this episode of TV, to me, it was unbelievable. I think I watched Barry, I caught up on this after it maybe was at the Emmys or something. It was around that time. But anyways, I had heard so much buzz about this episode, how it was amazing, and it won the Emmy for, was it directing and writing or something like that? Like, just a whole lot of praise. It won awards and all this stuff. And so I go into the episode, I'm like, really? Like, what's the deal with this episode? And within like 2 or 3 minutes of this episode, I am just dying laughing, and immediately I'm like, okay, this is why I got so much attention and so much acclaim. And then it just keeps going. Like, it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, to the point where, like, my stomach hurts and I'm just, like, I'm tired of laughing, but I'm still laughing because it's so, so funny and just so well done. Like, the whole episode is actually pretty much a bottle episode, really, right? Like, it kind of takes a break from the whole plot of what's going on in the show, I guess the larger plot, if you will. And it's really just Barry hunting down this one guy, and it ends up that his daughter is this, like, you know, karate master, right? And so it's just this exaggerated, absurd kind of thing of, yeah, Barry just has this simple thing. He goes take out this guy and he'll be done, whatever. And it just ends up being this absolute nightmare. And then it just goes and spirals right into chaos, you know, and, you know, so many set pieces and action, and the ending sequence at the convenience store, the kind of shootout, and this guy just not dying. I mean, Barry does so many things to him. He just never dies. Anyway, so just the absurdist, the physical comedy, even just some of the dialogue with Fuchs and Barry as well when they're in the car and the girl's on top, you know, riding on the top of the car. Like, yeah, there's so much in this episode, and like I said, it's literally from the first couple minutes of the episode till the very end. It's just constant laughs and just packing in all of this absurd, chaotic, things that happen. So, what an episode of TV. To me, I think probably the funniest episode of TV that I've ever seen, with Barry there. So yeah, I think it deserves all the praise that it got. It's an unbelievable episode. So really great. Okay, next then, at number 34 is Deadwood, Season 1, Episode 12, Sold Under Sin. So this will be the only episode from Deadwood, and I actually just have been recently looking back on Deadwood and watching it for the first time. And this episode really stuck out to me from Season 1, the finale of Season 1. This episode I thought was just really impressive. There's another episode from Season 1 that was very close. I think it actually maybe could have been on this list in a top 50, maybe around that 50 to 40 mark. It's a really good episode, but this one I just thought, again, talking about payoff, a really great payoff to everything that was going on to this point till Season 1. And this season of Deadwood, really all the seasons of Deadwood, all 3 seasons, but this season as well, felt it's a complete arc, really. The entire season and a lot of these characters, just really all satisfying conclusions to their plots and to their arcs. And it's the beginning sequence of this episode, I think, where we get deaths of multiple characters at the beginning, and then the ending sequence is also the death of major characters, and it's there's just this insane thing of all these events happening. And it's almost like this montage, right, of this character is killed, and then at the same time, we're seeing it kind of overlaid with this other scene of this other character. I can't remember if they get killed but at least something happens to them, right, that is, kind of tying that up or kind of finishing that plot line, if you will. So anyways, yeah, the cavalry comes to Deadwood, right? And so that kind of plays a big dynamic. It feels like a bigger episode. We get a lot of extras and just a lot of, new characters that come into the fold, within the episode. So yeah, I really thought it was really great and a really great conclusion to, like I said, a lot of the stuff that's been building up. I also did really like that we got Timothy Olyphant's character and Molly Parker, right? They're 2 characters. Bullock and Alma, right? Alma Garrett. And those 2 characters kind of got together finally as they've been building up to the entire season. And that kind of happened in the finale here as well, which was one of my favorite moments of the show, for sure. So, yeah, just a really great finale. Like I said, almost really a placeholder for a lot of really great episodes of Deadwood. But to me, again, this is kind of one of those shows, like some others as well, that is just a really great show. But it doesn't necessarily have specific episodes that really stick out to you. It's more these seasons that are really great, these plot lines that are really great, or these characters that are really great, and less so just specific episodes where a big battle plays out, or a big character death plays out, something like that. And so anyways, really great episode of Deadwood, and a really great series. I've yet to watch the movie, so I do want to watch that, and I'm hoping that kind of ties everything up together, hopefully pretty nicely, when I look back on Deadwood. So yeah, I wouldn't include the movie here, but hopefully it is good. We'll have to see. All right, so kind of sticking in the same vein here, we have number 33, Justified, Season 3, Episode 13, Slaughterhouse. So this is the first of 3 Justified episodes, for sure. No doubt about that. Justified is one of my, probably a top 5 TV show for me all time. So yeah, I mean, this is just a really great episode. The finales of Justified each season were unbelievable. I mean, really, this to me is the 3rd best finale. The other 2 are also these finales of seasons. This was just really great. Again, word I've said probably the most so far in this video, payoff. Really great payoff. The really great villain this season, played by Neil McDonough, Quarles, right? Who comes to town and, as I think Boyd calls him, a carpetbagger, right? Comes to town and just unleashes chaos, basically. And to this point in the finale, I mean, he does some just reprehensible things, and he is just such this build up really to this like all-time villain character, right? And so to see him meet his demise, spoiler alert, but meet his demise in this finale episode, and the way it plays out too, obviously the title Slaughterhouse takes place in the slaughterhouse, and Limehouse, of course, character there in Justified, really great character. And so the whole plot line of Limehouse and that whole group that is established in this season all comes to a head and all makes sense of why they focus so much time on them, and Limehouse had so much to do in the season for that all to come together in that final scene, basically, or sequence of the episode. And to then be involved in Quarles' demise was just really, really great and really satisfying. So to me, that's the main, stuff that sticks out in this finale. Also, some really great stuff with Boyd, I think, when, I think Raylan comes to see him as well. They have a confrontation in this episode. A really great scene as well. So, yeah. Just a really great finale, like I said. Everything of Season 3, building up this big bad of Quarles, and to see him finally meet his demise is just some of the most satisfying stuff that we saw in Justified. So, yeah, kind of like Deadwood there, right? A really great finale that was really satisfying to everything that they built up there throughout the season. So, yeah, just a really great episode. And like I said, the third best of Justified. We'll definitely be talking about it more as we go on. Okay, so number 32 then is our only episode actually from this show, which is kind of crazy because to me this is like probably a top 10, top 15 at the very least show of all time for me. But nonetheless, it is White Collar, Season 6, Episode 6, titled Au Revoir. So this is the series finale for White Collar. Kind of a funny one, right? Because they had this abbreviated only 6-episode final season here. I can't remember because I didn't watch White Collar live. Although I did watch this finale, like I watched the whole show, and I watched this last Season 6 within months of it coming out. So I didn't watch it live, but it was like the same year that it released, on air, that I was able to watch it. And so I'm not sure the details on it, why that ever happened, of why they only gave them 6 episodes to kind of wrap things up here. But I am glad they did whatever happened, because to me, this is one of the best series finales of a TV show of all time. Just the whole episode in itself, the whole case that they've been building up the whole season to, with Neil being involved in it, like it's just a really great case. And again, like it's a case of the week show. And so, to see this case play out, one of the better cases and storylines that they had in the show, a really great villain as well to this point. And so, yeah, just a really great kind of thing there, just alone, even if this wasn't a series finale, just a really great episode of TV, a great story there. But then it's also, the ending to the episode, of course, and the finale for Neil Caffrey as a character. I guess I don't want to spoil too much here, but, basically his end and how he finally gets his freedom from the situation of being in this basically relationship, or this basically forced partnership with Peter. Of course, him and Peter, became very good friends and bonded and really did love each other and respect each other as partners. But, at the end of the day, he was never going to be free from Peter as long as he was, still alive, I'll say. I'm not going to spoil too much, but anyways. And so the way that they end this episode is just so pitch perfect, and like I said, so satisfying to finally see the character of Neil Caffrey, our anti-hero, right, that we've been following and loving the whole series long, to finally see him get that freedom at the very end of the episode. I thought was so good. And to me, I don't know, when I watched the episode, I thought it was a great twist because I really did. I bought into what was happening and what all the characters thought happened in the show. And then just that final sequence of them kind of tying the bow up and showing us that, no, wait, no, we lied, right? Neil is, here, and he's fine, and he is now free. So, yeah, just to me, one of the best series finales of any show. I thought White Collar, again, one of my favorite shows of all time, and this was just such a fitting end to the show. So you talk about payoff. Yeah, this was definitely paying off. A really great arc for the character of Neil Caffrey there for sure. So next then at number 31 is Chernobyl, episode 1, titled 12345. Yeah, this came to mind right away when I was putting together this list, especially within the last decade, if you want to talk about. This is right up there, with TV episodes. To me, I know a lot of people like the finale of Chernobyl, which is a great miniseries, by the way, but the finale, yeah, and to me, I actually think the finale is maybe the weakest episode of the series, and I think this first episode is just so impressive. The directing here from Johan Rank is unbelievable, and just what Craig Mazin is able to do here with this episode, and it's almost the lack of writing that makes this episode so strong, and basically just depicting what happened, right? The title of the episode, 12345, I think that's the exact time that the reactor at Chernobyl exploded, right, or detonated, and then the whole event plays out, right? And so seeing that from the different perspectives of these characters and trying to put you in the shoes of these characters and what they experienced at the time of this event happening, like, I don't know, to me it's just really impressive what he was able to do with this episode and do that with these characters. And some of these characters, like, we spent, maybe 10, 15 minutes with in this episode of TV, and yet you still feel so attached to them and so sympathetic for what they're going through in this situation. And you feel sympathetic, too, to, like, how they handled things. Like, the workers at the plant, right? Like, how would you possibly, react to this? So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a really great way of building that experience, and also the tension too at the beginning of the episode as well for what's happening. So yeah, just really impressive work. To me, I thought this was the best episode, but just overall, a really great series, obviously, of Chernobyl. Definitely up there if you want to talk about, best miniseries of all time. For sure, no doubt. So yeah, really had to put this episode of Chernobyl here on the list. All right, so into our top 30 now. Number 30 is The Terror. Season 1, Episode 10, We Are Gone. Yeah, I had to put something from The Terror in here. And speaking of series finales, I know technically it's not the series. This is an anthology show, but at the time, it was the series finale, right? Like, there was no season 2 of the show. This was it. It was just called The Terror. So anyways, series finale, effectively, it's one of the best to me. This episode and just The Terror as a whole was really, really great surprise at the time. I think it was 2018. I think I covered every episode here on the channel if you're at all interested in looking back on it. And I definitely covered this finale. And I remember at the time, I said, I'm like, this is really, really great. Like, this is just an amazing finale, and to me, in finales, I always look for, and I think I've talked about this already, is tying up, right, all the loose ends, tying up those storylines, tying up these character arcs and everything, and this episode does that so well. It also ties up the thing that I believe it's in episode 1 of the series, and then maybe they kind of go back to it at times throughout the rest of the season. But definitely in episode 1, where they have this scene that plays out, and I think the whole message of it is, like, we are dead and gone, we are dead and gone, don't come looking for us, right? Of this team that went into this Arctic expedition that we've been following the whole time. And so that's kind of how we start off the whole series in episode 1, and then to kind of play that all full circle after now we've seen the journey, we've seen what has happened to these men, and then to come back to that scene in the finale and actually kind of put a new twist on it. It's not like, oh, okay, like now we see the scene and then we end. No, it's they put a twist on it because something happens to one of our main characters. Yeah, I guess I won't spoil it. You know, I really do recommend this, by the way, if you haven't seen The Terror. But anyway, so one of our main characters, there's a twist with him, I'll just say, and that actually changes the entire context of that scene that we saw in episode 1. And so it's not just, yeah, they revisit the scene and do a kind of a callback. No, it's like also just reframing that entire scene and the entire plot line. So, yeah, just an amazing episode. And then right at the beginning is kind of the end, really, of the story. We get everything kind of tied up. And then the rest of the episode, or basically the last, half of the episode, if you will, is kind of the kind of recontextualizing the scene and seeing what has happened now to one of our main characters, and basically, what his life will be, in the future after all of these events have happened. So, yeah, it's just an amazing episode. Like I said, so satisfying, tying up everything and just reframing everything that we just saw in the first 9 episodes, and really tying a really neat bow on all of it. So, yeah, again, looking back on the channel, this is like one of my favorite moments, I would even say, on the channel, like reviewing this episode and, watching it and getting on here, sharing my thoughts and hearing from everybody. And yeah, it was just such a great series, a complete surprise. I didn't even know about the show. I think it was on after The Walking Dead, right? It was on AMC. And they put it on there to get some eyes on it. They put it on after Walking Dead. And so I watched a bit of it, and I'm really glad I did. Like, it was just, and I think still to this day, it's a little underrated. So, yeah, just an amazing show. Really great finale to a great series there. All right. So next up then is number 29, True Detective, Season 1, Episode 4, Who Goes There? So, to some people who have seen this season and are familiar with this episode, I'm sure you're probably thinking, this is a little low for that episode. And yeah, I think that's fair. I think I definitely could have had this a little higher, as I look at this. But man, there's so many good episodes, and I just love all of the ones above this. But anyways, this is kind of in the same vein, I would say, as the Westworld episode, the Black Sails episode, a few of these episodes so far, where I've talked about, yes, the episode as a whole is great. It is. There's some really great other stuff in the episode. But the main thing of this episode is a specific sequence or a specific moment of it. And that is really evident here with this episode. Who Goes There? My 2 cents, it's probably the most impressive, filmmaking or, just ambitious choice, directing, whatever you want to call it. It's the one-take sequence, basically, that takes place towards the end of this episode, and it is impressive. I mean, it's unbelievable. And, this was, I think, in 2014 or 2015, True Detective Season 1, and since then, we haven't seen this. Like, we haven't seen anything, to me at least. I don't think we've seen anything close. Obviously Game of Thrones was probably around this time, where I'll talk about other episodes of Game of Thrones as we keep going here, that were close to this, right, in terms of the kind of directorial achievement of something like that. But it's just unbelievable what they were able to do. And I remember, obviously, I didn't watch True Detective Season 1 when it came out. I watched it many years later. I want to say 2019 or something like that. But anyways, and so when I was watching that episode, I just couldn't believe what was happening in front of my eyes, watching this one-take sequence happen and how impressive it was. And I was just left there. I'm like, how did they do that? How did they possibly pull that off? And Cary Fukunaga, the director, deserves a lot of credit. I'm not sure who the cinematographer was, but they deserve a lot of credit. Like the actors as well. Joseph Sikora, who plays Ginger in the scene. Of course, I know him from Power after this, but he's great. And then obviously Matthew McConaughey as well. Obviously the stunt work with the action, the fighting that's taking place. Like, it's just unbelievable what they were able to do in this episode and in that sequence. So yeah, have to mention it here. And to me, at least of the last, 2 decades, you want to even say the golden age of TV, this is up there in the most iconic episodes for sure. And to me, I think IMDb, right? I think it's like among the top rated episodes there too. So yeah, just a truly iconic episode, and for good reason. A really, really great one there. Okay, number 28 then is Band of Brothers, episode 9, Why We Fight. And again, a completely fair question would be, why do you have this low? Yeah, I know. Again, talking about IMDb top-rated episodes, I think this is like, I want to say top 25 or something like that. Like, this is up there, or maybe top 50. I can't remember. But anyways, it's up there, I'm pretty sure. And again, talking about iconic episodes of TV, yeah, I mean, this is right up there. Obviously, we've had some films. Right, that depict the Holocaust and, the environment, that these prisoners lived in, and all this stuff. But this episode of Band of Brothers, at least in the TV space, right, it had never been done like this before, and it hasn't been done since, right? And to me, my 2 cents, I would say it's probably the best I've seen, even compared to movies, but I think that's debatable. But it's just, it's unforgettable. It really is. Like, the way that they were able to put this to screen in a way that is, to all accounts, really authentic, just heartbreaking, emotional, but then also, right, to have our characters that we've been following this whole time, and specifically our one character who's Jewish, right, and then also, obviously this has a big impact on him. And so, but we've been following that character for 8 episodes and been with him and connected with him. And so we feel that emotion that he feels, right? It's not just, okay, let's show this and let's try to depict what this was like. It is that, but it's also then throwing our characters, our band of brothers, our group that we've been connected with, and putting them in this situation and seeing their reactions is so emotional, right? And then, obviously seeing the people and the actors playing the survivors deserve a lot of credit for committing to that, and the production design, like building this, all this stuff was really impressive. So anyways, there's more to this episode. I do really like, I think it's the surrender of the one Nazi officer. I think that whole sequence is really great as well. When they reach, I think that's this episode as well, right? When they reach the Hitler's, it's kind of like his outlook in the mountains or whatever. And they reach that. I believe that's at the end of this episode, or perhaps it's right in the finale. But anyways, the kind of sequence that plays out towards that, nonetheless, is really great as well. So yeah, there's more to this episode, but yeah, I mean, I think that sequence is what's, obviously the most memorable and the most iconic about this episode. And it's unforgettable. It really is. It's just a really impressive feat that they're able to pull that off. And just to see that on screen is just something. It's just really impressive. So, yeah, obviously, I have another episode of Band of Brothers coming up that I do prefer to this episode. But yeah, if you want to talk about the most iconic, objectively speaking, this one might take the cake for Band of Brothers, which to me is the best miniseries ever made. All right, so number 27 then is Westworld, Season 1, Episode 10, The Bicameral Mind. So yeah, I put this one on here as well. So we have 2 Westworld episodes, which is kind of funny, again, given the fact that you can't even stream the show anymore on Max, I don't think. Like, they removed it from their platform. That's how bad the show got. But, I mean, the first season and part season 2, like, it's amazing television. So anyways, I feel like I have to defend it a little bit just because of the reputation of the show now. But anyways, yeah, again, a word I've said so many times already, payoff. A really great payoff episode for, again, the whole season that we've set up with Westworld. Like I discussed before, the hosts versus humans and what happens when artificial intelligence gains consciousness, and how are we responsible for that, right? What role do we play in advancing that and letting that happen? All of these questions that I think were at the center of Westworld the entire time, beyond it just being, yeah, this cool Western show. It all comes to a head in this finale, and the ending specifically to this finale episode is unbelievable. I mean, it's just an unbelievable sequence, which they also foreshadowed, by the way, and set up really, really beautifully earlier in the episode of this finale, I think, and then also earlier in the season. And then again, I don't want to spoil too much, but, the death of one of our main characters, at the hands of another one of our main characters who's a host, I'll just say that. And it's just an amazing scene that plays out. Again, speaking of twists, I mean, that was a pretty shocking end to that episode. But again, you think about it a little bit and you say, yeah, they set that up perfectly, right? Like, that was just really well done. And so it's that writing that I think a lot of people absolutely loved about Westworld Season 1, and again, parts of Season 2, and also what completely drove the show off a cliff later on in Seasons 3 and 4. But at this point, they were masters at that type of writing and the twists and the turns and setting all that up with foreshadowing. So yeah, just an amazing episode that plays out here to end Westworld Season 1. Which again, I mean, if you look at seasons of television and disregard, right, the later seasons of Westworld, maybe you just talk about Season 1 of Westworld, I don't know, my 2 cents, it would definitely be up there in terms of all-time seasons of television for sure. But anyways, that'll be it for Westworld on this list, but had to put at least a couple episodes here on there for sure. All right, number 26 is The Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 8, Too Far Gone. This, to me, is the second best episode of the Walking Dead series. Yeah, huge fan of the show, and so this one, to me, again, that word, payoff, is amazing, right? And just this whole episode, especially to this point, like later on in the series, we get episodes like No Way Out, which you'll see a little bit later. We get episodes that are kind of big payoff episodes that have that action, that have that, big kind of set pieces, big cast, right, where we get a bunch of these characters all in one place. We get more of those episodes for sure. Battle episodes, right? Something like Game of Thrones kind of coined that term, I think, but it applies here too. But to me, at this point of the show, right, in Season 4, this was the first big battle episode, right, where we get the governor, who is this main villain in Season 3, who's effectively been defeated and then completely rises from the ashes again in Season 4, and they build it up again and basically build him up to be an even worse villain, if that's possible, to this point with pretty much nothing to lose at this point, and which is so dangerous, right? And so he comes back to the prison, to our main group of survivors, and battle ensues, right? And of course, the death of, again, spoiler alert, but the death of Herschel, right? Unforgettable moment in Walking Dead. And when I was watching it for the first time, I could not believe what just happened. Of course, the reaction from Beth and Maggie, it's just, I mean, this stuff is etched into my skull forever. I mean, it's just unforgettable stuff. So he kills Herschel, and then, the tank goes forward, and it's just unbelievable chaos ensues. And then, of course, the death of the governor eventually, and the end of the episode that really launches. I mean, the whole second half of Season 4 is like completely changed, right, by this event that happens in this finale, mid-season finale of Season 4. So, yeah, amazing episode, of course, of The Walking Dead. Easily a top 5 episode, and, to me, it would be my second favorite of the show. All right, so kicking off then, our top 25 is number 25, Black Sails, Season 2, Episode 10. And again, I think this is Episode 18 in their Roman numerals. That's the title of it. So, yeah, this is just such a great finale. I mean, the whole season really building up this whole Flint Captain Flint, right, our main character, his kind of war against the British, right, and I believe he tries to like kind of bargain a deal with them, right, and tries to kind of see their side of things and try to work out this deal with this guy who he's had history with, right, because of course he began in the British system before he became a pirate. And anyways, and so, or I think it's earlier in the season, or maybe, yeah, I think it's earlier in the season where this character turns on him, right? And so then he's taken prisoner. And so this episode is basically his trial. And I mean, by all accounts, his trial just means his death, right? There's really no trial. It's not a fair trial, of course. And the British are obviously just going to kill the pirate. And so it's basically his death. And so the entire episode, or the first bit of the episode at least, plays out in this way of it's not looking good. Like there's really no way out of this. It looks like this is going to be Flint's demise. He is going to die at the hands of the British. And what happens is just insane. A character who basically, Charles Vane, who has been a villain and has been the enemy of Flint basically the entire time leading up to this in the show, is his savior and is the one who ends up actually rescuing him in this episode. And so just that twist alone, that happening and seeing that playing out, and then just the, you know, it's just unbelievable. The action that comes out, the kind of battle, the sword fighting, the brutality as well, where we get the pirates just no mercy on the British, and the same goes the other way. The British have no mercy for the pirates, so just these brutal killings in the streets of this of the colony, right, that they're in. And so then eventually, of course, they make their way out, and Flint survives. And then, of course, all this is going on, and then there's also the plot that pays off the entire story of the second season of this treasure that's gone missing, and then we see that Jack and his group are able to secure the treasure, and then that ties up that whole plot line too. So like just an amazing episode again in terms of payoff of all the stuff that they set up in the season, and then of course the treasure thing as kind of the cliffhanger twist at the end of the episode that leaves some really great stuff for season 3 as well. So yeah, Black Sails to me, I think a really underrated show for sure. And season 2 is to me the best season of the show. So this finale is unbelievable. Really great stuff there for Black Sails. All right, so 24 next is Mad Men. Season 1, Episode 1, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. So effectively the pilot of Mad Men. Of course, it was ordered to a series, I think, so technically it wasn't a pilot episode on AMC, but anyways, yeah, this first episode, I think, is one of the most impressive Mad Men episodes. Yeah, sure, it's, you know, we're not getting the word payoff here because there is none. We haven't set anything up yet. It's not one of those episodes, but it's just a really effective pilot episode. I'm going to have a few more pilots that are above it here on this list, but it's one of the best ones to me, probably top 5, I would say. It just establishes the world, the period so well, and just everything, right? The costumes, the production design, the acting, the writing of everything. Like, it's just, everything is just so well established in this first episode. And then, of course, the character of Dawn Draper, right? Establishing that character at the very beginning of this episode is with this kind of hippie girl, right? And it's kind of this, you know, flirty, kind of, you know, flirtatious kind of relationship. They hook up right at the beginning, or they maybe just hooked up, and that's kind of where we find Dawn. And then we see that he's this, you know, high-up executive at this advertising firm, and all this stuff. And so we get to know Dawn and see what kind of, you know, man he is and all this stuff. And then the end of the episode comes, and he goes home to his wife and kids at the end of the day. So that to me, yeah, it's just really effective, the way that they were able to, you know, Matthew Weiner hide that, you know, a side of Dawn and really show us this one, you know, side of him, this picture of who we think this character is, and then completely turn that on its head at the end of the episode. and see that he's a family man, right? And so obviously we see the kind of duality of that character and figure out that, yeah, there's a lot more to this guy, and maybe he's not, he's not just this kind of, bad boy, kind of sleazy, advertising exec. He also, well, he is that, but then he also has a family and is kind of this dedicated family man who goes and tucks his kids in at night. So yeah, a really great episode, and like I said, just in a really effective way to kind of hide that from us and then pay that off towards the end of the episode. So really great pilot for Mad Men, getting it all started there. All right, speaking of pilots, here's the next one. Number 23, we have The Shield, Season 1, Episode 1, pilot. So this will be the only episode from The Shield. Complete honesty, I have not seen the entire series of The Shield. I think I stopped at about Season 4, and I do really want to go back to it because I have heard Season 7 and the series finale is really great. I think I've seen that on some lists of top episodes. So, forgive me for that. I probably should have that episode on here if I had seen it. I have not. So anyways, if I had to pick one episode, it has to be this pilot of The Shield. I mean, you just talk about groundbreaking, iconic episodes of TV history. This pilot is right there. It has to be, right? Like the whole fact of setting up this cop show with a dirty cop, right, at the center of it in Vic Mackey. And even in this episode, though, you see, they kind of cut corners right here and there. Vic and his crew, right, Shane Vendrell and a couple of the other guys, Lem, right, they cut corners a little bit, right. That is seen, but it's not until the very end of the episode where spoilers, but it aired in 2002, so I think it's fair, but where he kills another cop at the very end of this pilot episode. And obviously just groundbreaking in the world of TV at the time. I just did a video on this recently about TV anti-heroes and how impactful this episode was and that moment in TV. But it also just, for the episode, is just astonishing. Like the whole episode is building up this character of Terry. And I think I've read at the time that this actor was actually pretty big too. And so by all accounts, it looked like he was going to be a main character throughout the entire, run of the show, and, that he was going to be on Vic's crew and all this stuff. And to completely turn that on its head at the end of the episode and have this main character of our cop show, kill another good cop at the end of the episode was just insane at the time. So, you got to give them a lot of credit. Sean Ryan, the creator and writer of this pilot episode. It's just amazing. Just amazing what they were able to do. And, of course, establishing all the characters, right? Showing us Dutch. And who else? CCH Pounder's character, right? And I'm forgetting the names of Acevedo, right? Their boss. So yeah, showing the barn and all that. So just a really great way to establish the show, and that moment at the end of the pilot is unforgettable. So really great stuff there from The Shield. Lots of other great episodes for sure, but this one really stuck out to me for sure. All right, number 22, we have Better Call Saul, Season 1, Episode 10, titled Marco. So this is the first of the Better Call Saul episodes on this list. We have 3 of them, of course. According to my limit, I would definitely have more if we did not have that limit in place. But this, to me, I think this is a really underrated episode of Saul. I think this, some people may see this as maybe a hot take in terms of, if you had to pick the top 3 episodes of Saul, maybe this one wouldn't be in a lot of lists. But I don't know. I rewatched Saul when the final season was airing a couple years ago now. I think in, 2022 it came out. And this episode to me, I was just I got to sit back and really think about this one, because I was like, this is an amazing episode of TV, and I don't remember people talking about it like that at the time. It's just a perfect finale for the first season of the show, like just in that way. It's a perfect episode in capturing exactly the essence of Jimmy McGill and what he would become in Saul Goodman. It's, you know, an emotional episode. It's amazing directing. Some of the sequences here is just like so great. So channeling what they did so well in Breaking Bad with like the montages and the kind of, you know, camera angles and all this kind of fun stuff that they work with. Throughout, you know, both shows, and it's just so good. And like, even just this episode, Marco, right, the title refers to Jimmy's friend that he goes and meets. We had never seen him before, or maybe we saw him like in a scene or something before this episode, and that is such a good character. Like, we love that character and we connect with him so fast in this episode. And of course, the ending of the episode, to see what happens to him, it's sad, right? And we've only known this character for like one episode. So the writing here by Peter Gould, off the charts. I mean, I think this is one of the best written episodes of this whole series, or maybe even Breaking Bad and Saul. It's just such a good episode. And like I said, such a great finale for season 1. And it really, like, if this was the finale and Better Call Saul never got another season, I think this would be like a really effective finale for just like a series finale of that first season. Again, it just completely captures that character of Jimmy McGill and Saul Goodman, which they do, you know, a lot of great stuff for the rest of the show. But this could work, I think, if it absolutely had to, as a kind of, you know, comment on the character of Jimmy McGill and showing what he is about and how he's been kind of brought down by his past. And this episode, he really has to, you know, reflect on his past and is forced to confront that version of him. And I just think it's brilliant. So, yeah, I have to put that on here. Maybe it's a hot take, but Marco, season 1, episode 10, is, to me, a top 3 episode of Better Call Saul. All right. Number 21 then is Mad Men, season 3, episode 13, Shut the Door, Have a Seat. So one of my favorite titles of any episode on this list. I absolutely love it. And of course, it's referring to a great scene in the episode where, who is it? Roger and Bert? Is it Bert? Bert Cooper? Yeah, I think it's Bert, right? Bert and Roger are in his office. And, you know, Don walks in, they tell him to shut the door, have a seat. And, of course, what they tell him next is really the whole focus of the episode. And really the thing that makes it, you know, stick out is the fact that they are leaving Sterling Cooper, the firm that we've been with the first 3 seasons of the show, and, you know, been with all these characters, connected with this group of people. And now they're going to be forced to leave, you know, with some of the characters, but some of them get left behind in this finale. And so we say goodbye to a lot of those characters and kind of are starting things over again. And they're starting now their own advertising agency with the people that they bring with them. So it's kind of a tense situation too, because they have to leave secretly, right? They kind of leave like overnight and then they're just gone the next day. And so we get that little tension playing through here. And I just love this episode and what it did for the show, right? It really, at the end of the 3rd season here, almost reinvented the show, really, and kind of put it in a new direction for season 4 especially, and going forward. So, yeah, I just really loved the dynamic, and just again, like that scene is just really great. One of the best in Mad Men, I would think. You know, the shut the door, have a seat. So, yeah, just a really great finale, I think, of season 3. Again, all the stuff they were kind of building to with the kind of trouble and the kind of chaos within Sterling Cooper and what was going on, especially with Price, a really great character, Jared Harris coming in and playing that. And then, of course, you know, him having a big effect on what happens and their betrayal, you know, of Sterling Cooper or Sterling in this case, and going off on their own. So, yeah, just a really great finale episode of Mad Men. Maybe a little low here to not even have it in the top 20. This will be the last episode of Mad Men on the list, of course, but yeah, great episode. A really great episode of Mad Men for sure. All right, number 20 then, our top 20. The Walking Dead, Season 6, Episode 9, No Way Out. I had to do it. This will be the last Walking Dead episode. But yeah, I think this is the best episode of the series. You know, you could point to episodes like Rick's final episode, you know, other kind of maybe more emotional episodes or, kind of, if you will, fan service where we get like cameos of characters coming back and this and that. But I think No Way Out is the ultimate episode of The Walking Dead. Like, it is the zombie episode, really. Like, it is the episode where basically the whole premise of the show, of the apocalypse and zombies, walkers in the case of the show, completely swarm Alexandria, where they are, our main group, our main community, and they have to fight their way out. And the entire episode, the entire point of the story is that the humans that are left, the survivors, have to fight against the walkers to survive. And that is like the ultimate premise of the show, right? At its core. And that is like the ultimate payoff of that is in this episode. It's just an amazing episode of TV. Like, obviously, starting from where we leave off in episode 8, the insane cliffhanger of Carl getting shot, and then that kind of playing, we pick up like the second after that in this episode. We start off, we're not sure if Carl is alive or not, and we get that iconic moment of Rick grabbing his hatchet and walking out that door into what is literally like a crowd of hundreds, if not thousands, of walkers, and he just goes out there alone and starts killing them, right? And just basically in a fit of rage, is just going and trying to make his way, through these walkers, and kill them all. So, and then of course, then we get all of our other characters to join him, including characters that to this point were like completely against that and didn't even like Rick, right? Or didn't support him. And so to see that, right? To see them all band together as a community for the first time and all join Rick, and just a really great sequence, really great direction where we get this kind of montage of all them, swinging the weapons and killing all these walkers. And yeah, it's just an amazing episode. And then also in this episode is the first time I think that we see, or one of the first times at least, that we see the Saviors come into play with Daryl, Abraham, and Rosita. I think it's Rosita at the beginning of this episode. And so we see the Saviors, first little hint at them coming in, who obviously play a massive role in the show in just a few episodes as we go in season 6 and then in season 7 and 8. So yeah, just an amazing episode that comes all together at the end. And of course they win over the walkers and take back Alexandria. So really great episode of Walking Dead, and to me, the best of the series. All right, so number 19 then, The Pacific, episode 9, part 9, Okinawa. So this is the only episode from the Pacific on this list, which I know is kind of insane. The Pacific is right up there with Band of Brothers. Obviously, I take Band of Brothers over it, but it's right up there in terms of best miniseries of all time. Of course, it's kind of a companion piece from Spielberg and Tom Hanks once again, as was Band of Brothers. And this episode in particular, Part 9, Okinawa, directed by Tim Van Patten, it really stands out. I mean, there's this main sequence of the episode where they are kind of, I think it's like they're running across this land where it's basically just a suicide mission, right? Where they're running across no man's land, right? Across the lines to get to these decrepit buildings to kind of hide out and try to get some to get defense from the enemies firing, the Japanese, right? And so they're kind of stuck in this kind of battle, right? And stuck in this no man's land, and it is unbelievable, what Tim Van Patten and cinematography as well, and what they're able to capture with this. You feel, right? Or well, obviously you wouldn't feel exactly what they went through, but it feels like you're in their shoes, running across this no man's land. The tension, the suspense, the fear, it's all there, and they're able to capture that so well, in this episode and in that sequence there. And yeah, it's just, again, like, you want to talk about battle episodes, this kind of action set piece kind of thing. Yeah, like, it's unbelievable what they're able to achieve in this episode of The Pacific. truly remarkable. It truly is. And there's some other stuff too. Rami Malek is amazing in the Pacific. I don't think enough people talk about that. And his performance in this, it's unbelievable. And then, what is his name? Joe Mazzello or Mazzello, something like that. Our main character in the Pacific. And their kind of dynamic in this episode I thought was really great. It kind of pays off really what has been building between those two. And kind of, what this war has done to them, what effect it has on them, which is pretty much the whole point or the whole theme of the series of the Pacific. And it really comes to a head at the end of this episode as well. So yeah, I mean, just an amazing episode of TV. Really, really impressive stuff there. All right, 18. I've teased it enough, so here it is. Game of Thrones, Season 4, Episode 9, titled The Watchers on the Wall. So I've talked about Game of Thrones a lot and said there'd be more episodes of it here. Yeah, of course, right? Watchers on the Wall, top 3 episode to me of Game of Thrones. I think 2 are better than it, that are above it here. But again, very similar to Pacific. You want to talk about action set pieces. I mean, some of the shots here, the kind of continuous shots that they're able to kind of pan around the Castle Black, right, where this battle is taking place between the wildlings and the group right at Castle Black led by Jon. Unbelievable battle episode. Like I said, the tracking shots, the continuous sequence here of the battle, the sword fights, like just everything about this episode is so impressive. And even like the giants trying to get through the gate at the bottom of the castle there and through that tunnel. Like there's just so many moments that are unbelievable that they were able to pull this off. In terms of the stunt work, the effects, again, the directing, the cinematography, also the nighttime, right, of getting that, the torches burning and stuff, lighting up the area and the scenes, like, it's unbelievable. It just looks beautiful, and the stuff that's taking place is so impressive. So yeah, and then obviously, from a character perspective, the death of one of our main characters, right, Rose Leslie's character, and what's her name? I'm forgetting the character's name now. Anyways, but Rose Leslie's character there, in that sequence where she dies. Really great death, right? In the way who kills her, right? It's the person who kills her, and the effect that has on Jon Snow is just so emotional. And so, to be able to, embed that moment or put that moment kind of within this huge scope of this battle taking place and being able to kind of commit to that moment and still having that emotion there is still really, that's really effective and really impressive that they were able to do that in that episode. So yeah, great. There's a number of great battle episodes in Game of Thrones, but I think this one is easily one of the best for sure. All right. 17 then is True Detective, Season 1, Episode 8, titled Form and Void. So this is the finale, right, for effectively, the first season of True Detective, or the first story, right, that they play out. Of course, it's an anthology, so Season 2 is a different thing. And this was just an amazing finale. Talk about series finales or season finales, whatever you want to call this one. It's right up there. Yeah, I mean, obviously, just a really great episode where, again, they've been messing with the timelines the whole time throughout the show, and the way that they're able to use the timeline, right, of the original timeline where they're investigating the Dora Lane, murder and the whole situation that plays out, and then really basically paying off the whole point of having all these different timelines throughout the entire run of the season so far, and paying that off with using it's not the current timeline, but it's kind of like the middle timeline, if you will, I guess. Using that timeline for them to be able to basically solve the case and find out after all these years who the killer was and basically solve the mystery of all of this. And so I think in a way that Nick Pizzolatto just wasn't quite able to in the other seasons of True Detective, he was able to pay off everything that he had, built to or developed, up until this point, in a really satisfying manner. And even just the character endings for Rust and Marty, right? The endings for them, and that scene where they're at the hospital and looking up at the stars. I mean, just that bond that they made throughout the series. The performances there obviously are great, but the writing with those two characters and how invested we are in them, and that scene at the very end of the finale, I think is just, it's emotional. It really is. Really powerful stuff. So yeah, I think it is really lightning in a bottle. I think, there are some really great moments in season 2 and 3, but Nick Pizzolatto really hit it out of the park, and I think this finale tied up everything so well with that first season of True Detective, which, again, one of the best seasons of TV all time for sure. All right, next up is 16. It is Breaking Bad, Season 1, Episode 1, Pilot. So this is the first of 3, obviously, Breaking Bad episodes, which I'll talk about the other 2 later. Yeah, I had to put this here. Now, again, are there better episodes of Breaking Bad, just objectively speaking? Again, more payoff episodes, or, more satisfying? And yes, obviously yes. An episode like Full Measure was just missed this list. I mean, it really should have been here. I mean, I could go on. There's lots of other episodes of Breaking Bad that could have made this list, but I really wanted to put the pilot on here, and I think it belongs this high on the list because it's the best TV pilot I've ever seen. It just is. I've had some other pilots on this list, Mad Men, The Shield, Justified has a really great pilot. There are some really great pilots. But this is the best pilot that I've ever seen on TV. It is a masterclass in, setting up a character, setting up the world of the show that's going to be taking place, showing us an insane arc just within this one episode. That's only it's an hour long, I think, or something along those lines. It's a little extended, but just the arc of where we start with Walter White and the hook of the episode, where with the actual start of the episode, where he has the gun and he's in his underwear in a desert. It's just brilliant. It's one of the best hooks that I've ever seen from a pilot in TV history, and to hook you in like that, right? Have you invested. And then we kind of go back, right? It's kind of what has become a trope, but at this point I don't think it was quite yet in that territory. But it's that whole thing of they show you an event and then we come back in time, right? And then we kind of, the whole rest of the episode plays out to the point where at the end of the episode, then we get back to that time that we started with. And I think it's just done flawlessly. It's the best use of that I've ever seen. And it's that kind of thing that almost a lot of pilots, I don't want to say almost all, but a lot of pilots since have done, is the day in the life type of thing, right? Where we get to meet this character and see them in a day in their life. And that's kind of how the episode starts. That's how we get to know the character. And then kind of the arc of the episode plays out after that. And again, it's just the perfect example of that whole day in the life thing. And it just captures that perfectly. So can't say enough about this pilot episode. Oh, also one last thing is the way that these characters, we literally meet a character like Marie, for example, or Hank, any of them, Skyler, of course Walt, and Jesse too. But it's these characters that we meet for it's literally their first scene in the show. We've seen them for maybe a minute on screen, and yet there's so much to them. They are unique characters that feel lived in, that feel like real people, and it's only within the first minute of them being in the show that we feel this way, and that we feel connected to them. We laugh at them. We know exactly what type of person they are, and it's just, I don't know. I could go on and on, but I think this is the best pilot in TV history, to the best show in TV history as well. But yeah, just an amazing episode of TV here with Breaking Bad. All right, so next in our top 15, at number 15, we have Justified, Season 2, Episode 13, titled Bloody Harlan. This is one of the best Justified episodes for sure. There's one more that I have above it here on this list. It's very high. But yeah, this is to me one of the best seasons of television is Season 2 of Justified. And this finale is just unbelievable. Again, the word I've been saying this whole time is payoff. What they're able to do with Season 2, setting up the kind of the villain group of the Bennetts, right? And, having Megs Bennett, played by Margot Martindale, an amazing performance, come in, and she plays a massive role in this finale. And, just having that villain group, right, built up the whole season long. And this is what Justified did so well, is it was able to do kind of like the case of the week kind of thing, and then also have this kind of side plot that, really the whole season kind of built right to a crescendo towards the end of the season. And then really the last 3 episodes of the season really kind of abandoned the case of the week and just dedicated it right to this main plot line of the villain group, and obviously Raylan and then Boyd being involved somehow, of course, in the conclusion of that story, and he is definitely in this finale. So, and I think this is the best way that they were able to do it. Obviously, I already talked about the Season 3 finale, which is great, but yeah, I mean, this episode was just so great. The payoff to it, having Raylan be, able to take out the Bennetts once and for all. And, of course, the iconic scene, if you're a fan of Justified, the line of dialogue, it was in the glass, right? The Megs Bennett line, Margot Martindale, such a great delivery. And, yeah, just that line and that whole scene that plays out, it's an insane tension. The way they're able to build that suspense, it's Megs and Raylan sitting down at a table together, sharing a drink. And the tension that they're able to build there between the two, of course, because as viewers, we know what Megs has done to the glass and the drink that Raylan is drinking. And so to see what is going to happen next, how is Raylan going to get out of this? So it's just an amazing scene that plays out. And just a really, really great payoff episode. To me, one of the best seasons of TV history. So, can't say enough about Justified Season 2. A really great finale to tie everything together. And that's another thing, too. It ties everything together so well in this episode where, Season 3 kind of has to start anew almost because it's so effective at tying up all the loose ends, especially with Boyd and Raylan and their relationship. It just really ties up everything really well. All right, so the next at number 14, we have Better Call Saul Season 3, Episode 5, titled Chicanery. So this is an all-time episode for Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, the universe, if you will. This is, essentially I think it's the bar hearing, right, for Jimmy. So what has, been really building up this entire time is, Chuck constantly disparaging Jimmy, and Jimmy is finally caught, in the act. Chuck kind of lures him in and traps him in this act and really is attempting to get him disbarred for what he does. And it's just, it's diabolical, what Chuck does to his own brother here. And, Jimmy does some stuff to Chuck too. So it's really all of this dynamic that's been playing out the first 2.5 seasons of the show coming to a head. And it's the great twist here that Jimmy's able to plant the battery, right? Chuck's been having this condition with electricity. He can't be close to it, of course. And he's able to plant this battery on Chuck. And just that move alone is really speaks to, because he knows that this is going to have a massive effect on Chuck, which of course it does. I mean, spoiler alert, but it pretty much leads to his death later in the season, right? And the way that he's able to do this to his own brother, put this battery planted on him, and then we get the hearing that plays out. And of course, the main focal point is Chuck basically testifying or taking a stand against Jimmy. And just this amazing monologue by Michael McKean as Chuck. I mean, just amazing writing. I think Gordon Smith wrote this episode. Amazing writing, amazing acting. It really is just like a full-on courtroom drama episode with some great monologues. And, you know, that one from Michael McKean is a sick joke, right? Talking about Jimmy being, you know, a lawyer still. And then, of course, just his rage after finding out that Jimmy planted this battery on him, making him question his condition, and really making him look crazy, right? Like completely just burying Chuck, right, and his reputation. And so, yeah, it's just such a great episode. Like, obviously, Better Call Saul, later on especially, you know, in an episode I'll talk about later too, like, yeah, there's the crime stuff, the cartel stuff, right, that we saw in Breaking Bad, and they kind of lead up to that, and obviously what roles Jimmy has to play in that as Saul Goodman, but this was not really about any of that. This was about two brothers and that dynamic that they had been working with the first 3 seasons of the show. And this, to me, was the ultimate payoff for that. So, to me, all-time episode from that universe, and one of the best from Better Call Saul, for sure. All right, next then is 13, Succession, Season 1, Episode 10, Nobody is Ever Missing. So this is the first of 3 Succession episodes. Yes, I have 3 episodes in the top 13. And yeah, this finale of Season 1 was, like, it was unbelievable at the time watching this. I did watch, you know, the premiere of Succession Season 1 when it came out. I did a review on the channel here even. And it wasn't until Episode 6. I think, you know, I've seen some people say this now, but I think it's Episode 6, Which Side Are You On? Where I really got it, right? Like, I got what the show was going for. I think they really hit the stride with the tone and the kind of balance between that comedy and drama. I think they really, you know, found that pitch perfect balance, right, between those two. And this episode, especially, I was on board. And then this episode, the unbelievable twist that happens, you know, about halfway through the episode, I just completely did not see it coming. And it really changed the trajectory of the show to me. You know, what Jesse Armstrong, the writer, is able to do in this episode, in that twist, and then just basically the whole rest of the episode playing out the way it does in Kendall's plan, really, to take down his dad, being completely dismantled. And just that, you know, seeing that character vulnerable like that, and him having to run back to his dad, Logan. And yeah, it's just unbelievable what that finale did. And then, of course, you know, Shiv and Tom's wedding as well is in that episode. So it's just a really great, you know, tying up everything that we've been building to in Season 1. It's a great finale. And then the second half of the episode, after that insane twist, it just completely kind of resets what we thought the show was in a way, at least in the drama side of it. And, you know, completely changes that dynamic too, and the power dynamic, which the show is all about with Kendall and Logan, and them kind of going back and forth. So, and sets up for a great beginning of the second season there. So, yeah, just an amazing episode, and not even the best finale of the show. Like, we have another finale above it here on this list. So it's unbelievable. Really great. All right, number 12 then. The first of 3 from this show, it is The Sopranos, Season 3, Episode 11, Pine Barrens. So, yeah, some people may even say this is low to have this outside of the top 10. Again, I think if you look at IMDb top episodes, this would be up there. I'm not sure what number or what range, but it would definitely be up there. This is an unbelievable episode. I mean, it is really funny, obviously. Paulie and Christopher, right, being the main stars of this one, and them chasing down this guy in the forest, right, in the middle of winter in New Jersey there. And, you know, you're right, like in the Pine Barrens, right? That's the title of the episode. And it's just amazing. I mean, the whole thing that plays out. Of course, they aren't in the forest the whole episode, but the beginning, they're kind of tracking this guy down. They find him at the apartment. Just so many great one-liners in this episode. Physical comedy is great. You know, it's just an unbelievable, unforgettable episode, and really in all ways, like, in effect, like, it's a bottle episode, really, right? Like, of the show. It's really this kind of, one-off setting with these, kind of more minor characters, right? Like, Tony, I don't think is in a lot of this episode. It's a lot of just Christopher and Polly. And so, it's this different setting, different group of characters. We kind of take a break from the main plot of season 3 that's going on at this point. And it's just so great. It's such a great, if you want to call it a bottle episode. And, to see the chaos that ensues as a result of this is just amazing. And the dynamic there, it's just so great. I mean, Michael Imperioli, his acting in this, I don't know. It's on another level. It's really, really impressive. So yeah, and that dynamic between those two characters, obviously throughout the rest of the show, it's great. But in this episode particularly, it's really impressive. So yeah, have to give them a lot of credit. I think Pine Barrens is up there in terms of the Sopranos episodes for sure. All right, number 11 then is Game of Thrones, Season 3, Episode 9, The Reigns of Castamere. So, yeah, you might say, how do you not have this episode in your top 10? I know. It was almost in the top 10. I think the episode above it could really switch out. I could put it at number 10, but yeah. An amazing episode of television, obviously. One of the best twists. I watched Game of Thrones in 2020 for the first time all the way through. I think I had seen, parts of season 1 or something like that at some point that I tried watching it. But I really got into Game of Thrones and watched the whole series in 2020. And by some miracle, I was not spoiled on this. I knew about the Red Wedding, but I don't even think I knew it was this episode, and I didn't know who died or what happened in it. I just knew that, it was an event, the Red Wedding. And so going into this one, thank God, I didn't have it spoiled. And yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable, shocking, right? Like, even season 1, like killing Ned Stark at the beginning of season 1 was obviously shocking. It all, in effect, our main character of the show getting killed off in the first season. But this, maybe even more shocking or more insane to have, in effect, at this point of the show, our main character, Robb Stark, who, the way that his arc was going and the story of the show is like, he was set on this course, right, to become the King of the North, right, and go on and to the next battle. He was waging this war, right? And it just had his kind of this whole path in front of him. They were really building up to this whole storyline. Same with Catelyn, being there and being, alongside Robb for this. And all of a sudden to just get that all ended within like this one little sequence, right? Towards the end of the episode. Unbelievable, right? Like, just unbelievably shocking to be able to kill those characters off like that. It's crazy. And of course, just perfectly executed, right? The entire episode, the tension that builds. And again, it's one of these twists, like I've talked about, that, yeah, it's a twist, it's insane, but it makes sense. There's little signs throughout the entire episode that something is wrong, that something is going to happen here. You just don't quite know what. You can't quite put your finger on it. But then once it happens and you look back on the episode, maybe you rewatch it, maybe you see some of those things and you figure it out, right? There's foreshadowing there for sure. So yeah, just an insane episode. The Red Wedding will go down in TV history. One of the most iconic moments and episodes for sure. In history, and definitely belongs on this list. All right, top 10. All right, so number 10 is Better Call Saul, Season 6, Episode 7, Plan and Execution. So this is, again, another newer episode here. This is from 2022, right, with Season 6 airing, the final season, and I had to put this in the top 10. I had to have a Better Call Saul episode in this top 10. And to me, this is the best episode of the series. I mean, the way that... So there's two parts to this, right? The way that just this episode as a whole is paying off the entire start of Season 6. And I know I've used payoff about 100 times so far, but this to me is maybe even like the best example of payoff that I've talked about so far. in this entire video is because the start of this season 6, like the first 6 episodes or so, or first 5 episodes, whatever it is, it's intriguing, it's interesting, but it's a lot of questions and a lot of like mysterious things that Kim and Jimmy are setting up here against Howard. And it looks like some of them kind of go wrong. Some of them are kind of just weird. Like, why would they do that? But of course, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, of course, they pay it off, and it all makes sense. It all comes full circle, like they always do in this episode. And so, in that way, it is like the perfect payoff to the stuff that comes before it that, okay, like, this is weird. Why is this happening? And why did they just do that? And to be able to make all of that make sense, I think this is just like a really insane lesson in writing. To be able to put all of that together and keep us intrigued enough, right, in the kind of mystery of things and seeing what's going on. Like, those other episodes are still great episodes of TV, and to be able to intertwine all of those little details along the way to then all mesh them together into this episode where everything comes full circle. It's a brilliant episode with the way it's written and everything playing out, and them getting the better of Howard with this plan, right, that they execute given the title. And so there's that part of it. Brilliantly done. And then, of course, the ending of the episode as a mid-season finale for Better Call Saul. Yeah, unbelievable. You talk about shocking twists, character deaths. Yeah, that is something that I absolutely did not see coming. I think the majority of people did not see coming. For that character to even just die in general, but to die in that way, it was unbelievable. And the way that they do that scene with Lalo coming in, and I don't know, so much tension building up, and just to see, like, it's just so sudden, right? And it's such a good cliffhanger into what goes on in episode 8 even, right? Like the very next episode where we pick up where we left off. But then, you know, obviously the rest of really Jimmy's storyline, and then going into, you know, the rest of season 6 into that kind of the epilogue period there. So yeah, it's just an amazing episode of TV. Masterclass in writing. Thomas Schnauz, the writer here, deserves a lot of credit there. All right, number 9 then is Succession, season 2, episode 10. This is Not for Tears, the season 2 finale. And like I said, yeah, that season 1 finale was amazing. It's not even the best finale of Succession, man. This, to me, season 2 of Succession is one of the best seasons of TV I've ever seen. I strongly believe that. And this finale is just, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like, the comedy and drama balance, of course, that goes without saying. There's some amazing comedic moments in this episode. There's some amazing dramatic episodes or moments in this episode, specifically the one between Tom and Shiv. Really, all of their story up to this point comes to a head in that scene. Brilliant acting from Matthew Macfadyen and Sarah Snook in that one. So that's the emotional, dramatic side of things. And then there's also some comedic moments, you know, like Tom taking Logan's chicken, right? He ate my chicken. And stuff like this, and puts his dick in my potato salad, right? Some lines like that come in, and you know, it's brilliant because it's putting all these characters that we've been following this season, the family, all into one setting, and it's on this boat where they really can't escape. They're on the ocean, right? And so it's brilliant, right? It's putting all these characters together. They're butting heads, and it just creates for amazing moments throughout the entire episode. And then, of course, being a finale, it's an amazing ending to this finale. It is really what the whole first 2 seasons have been for the show in building up Kendall Roy, exploring that dynamic between him and Logan, you know, taking on his father. Logan says in the episode, "You're not a killer," right? "I don't believe you. You can't be that guy," right? And it's his whole life that Kendall's been told that by Logan, that he's not a killer, he can't be that guy, he won't be that guy, and he is. He does that in this episode. He is the killer, he becomes the killer, at the very end of this finale episode. And of course, to me, one of my favorite moments is the shot then where we get Logan and he kind of gives a little bit of a smile because he's actually kind of impressed that his son finally became this killer, even though he's completely buried Logan and is, basically completely sunk his reputation and his career. Now, season 3 of the show kind of backtracked a little bit and was a little disappointing to me in that aspect, but just up to this episode and for what it does for the show to me, I think is groundbreaking, and it's another great finale of Succession. So really great episode there. Next, at number 8, we have Justified, Season 6, Episode 13, The Promise. So this is the series finale of Justified. No doubt one of the best series finales of all time, in my opinion. Just, again, like I've said before about these finales, just a great episode in general. Like the start of this episode, an amazing sequence between Boone, basically our secondary villain of the season to this point, and the shootout with Raylan. That, to me, that's still that's one of the best scenes of the show, and it takes place in this finale. And then of course, Raylan having to take out Sam Elliott's character, our main villain of the season, so that's a great moment. And then of course Boyd is kind of wrapped up in that, and we see kind of the final confrontation between Boyd and Raylan, and what Raylan decides to do. Is taken Boyd after all this time, and again, it's kind of been building up the entire 6 seasons of the show to that moment where Raylan was gonna have to do something with Boyd, and so that kind of concludes. And then, of course, you want to talk about the ending, like kind of the second half to this episode. Is some of the most satisfying stuff ever put to screen, at least in TV, with Raylan and Boyd. We dug coal together. Just an amazing scene, an amazing just catharsis, to see those two characters together and talk like that after all this time, and it's just really great. And then, obviously to see where Raylan ends up, at the end, and it's just an amazing finale. So, yeah, one of the best series finales I've ever seen, and what a great way to end what was, to me, one of the best shows of all time in Justified. So, this will be the last episode, last time I talk about Justified, but it was amazing finale there. All right, number 7 is Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards. So, yeah, to me, this is my favorite, or what I consider the best episode of Game of Thrones. It's the best battle episode to me. This is just so impressive from a technical standpoint, what they were able to do with this episode. I mean, this is, like, movies or TV, it's just unbelievable, the scope of things and the way that they're able to depict this battle, which of course is amazing. Like, it's just such a satisfying payoff to what we've been building up to really for seasons at this point between Jon and Ramsay, but especially in season 6, right? It's like this entire season just comes to a head with these two having to fight and going at it for the North, right? And it's coming, and they still manage to really do something that you couldn't even have expected with this battle episode. And just the sequences that play out, all of the bodies and Jon having to climb out of the bodies, like some of those shots are just insane. The sound work, right, with Jon being trapped, and it's unbelievable what they're able to do. And then of course, they're saved right by Littlefinger, who comes in along with Sansa, and so they're saved. They're able to defeat, Ramsay. A really satisfying end to one of the, most evil villains in TV history, maybe in history of media in general. Such a despicable person, and just an amazing end, of course, to Ramsay having his own hounds basically eat him to death, eat him, killing him. So yeah, just a really satisfying way to end that whole arc between Ramsay and Jon, and the directing here is an achievement to say the least. So, yeah, really great, and I think it's the now at this point of Game of Thrones, I was already having my doubts. I think season 7 is really where it starts to get rocky. Of course, season 8 kind of goes off a cliff, but this episode kind of transcended really what was starting to happen at this point, because I think the writing, the acting, everything of this episode was pretty much perfection. So just amazing stuff there. All right, number 6 then is The Sopranos, season 5, episode 12, long-term parking. I think a lot of people would say, I think I looked on IMDb, this is the best Sopranos episode, and it's up there, really high up there, I think, in the top TV episodes list on IMDb as well. It's the second best, I think, for The Sopranos, but not by much. Like, it is an unbelievable episode of TV. The whole episode really plays out as almost a self-contained story. Of course, we've been building up to it for seasons now, with Adriana, being basically an informant, right? Or at least, helping, right? The, is it FBI, right? The FBI, sharing secrets, but really not really, right? Like, she's trying to save Christopher and kind of be mum about things, of course, but at this point, she's really pushed to rat him out, right? And to actually share some actual details that would help take down Tony and take down Christopher. And so she poses this to Christopher at the beginning of this episode, basically, and, says, like, we have to run away, right? Because, I can't, I love you, I want to be with you, and otherwise, if we don't run away and basically hide out from the FBI, they're gonna prosecute me. I'm gonna go to jail, and all this stuff. And so Christopher is faced with the decision of either, running away with Adriana, abandoning Tony and the whole family, becoming this rat, right, that they'll figure it out, but being with Adriana, right, for the rest of his life, or does he tell Tony and then, we know what's going to happen to Adriana at that point. He knows. And so just like, it's almost like a movie, really. Like, the entire episode, like I said, is almost just a self-contained thing, which of course we get the development for of seasons long, but it's really come to a head in this episode. And it's just brilliant the way that it's written as well, where we don't know what Christopher has decided. And even in the scene, like, he tells Adriana what he's decided and that they're going to run away together. And we don't even quite know, right? And it's also just brilliant writing where we don't get any dialogue. It's just this moment or moments of Christopher reflecting and, making the decision effectively, of course, to abandon Adriana and go to Tony and tell him about this and tell him about her. And, of course, this leads to what happens to her. Silvio picks her up. And it's so heartbreaking, man, to see this whole sequence. And again, brilliantly written, the way it plays out with her in the car ride with Silvio. And it's just, right? Like, what's happening. It's just this accident that you're like watching in slow motion happening. But there's like a little bit of hope there that maybe Silvio might actually, not do what he's supposed to do and actually help her. And, just the whole scene where she's, crawling away, like, unbelievable stuff. I mean, this is brilliant writing, brilliant directing, brilliant acting as well. By Drea Metio, just brilliant. Brilliant all the way through. Michael Imperioli as well. Just an amazing episode of TV. So I can see why some people would say it's the best, easily, for sure, of The Sopranos. Yeah, definitely. Definitely a great episode. All right, into the top 5. Number 5 is Band of Brothers, episode 2, titled Day of Days. To me, this is the best episode of Band of Brothers. And, I think it's like the 5th highest rated of the show. I don't know. I really, the first time watching Band of Brothers, Kurahi, I think it like kind of gets overhated. I actually really like that episode. I think it really is an important foundation for what comes in the whole rest of the series. But this episode, after Kurahi, then seeing this one, I was blown away. I mean, just the start of this episode, like the first sequence or one of the first sequences here, where they are parachuting out of the sky and they're flying at the planes and half the planes are getting bombed and exploding in the air, and so it's kind of this like minefield in the air and they have to parachute down, and just the cinematography there, the direction of just how beautiful that looks, but how chaotic at the same time. So that to me is just an unforgettable shot. I'll never forget that sequence in TV. And then the whole rest of the episode, them landing in Normandy behind enemy lines and what they have to do. To me, I just feel like it's such a great episode because it establishes, Curry showed us these characters, but it establishes the world and the environment that they're going into now. And so it's this perfect balance of, okay, now we know these characters, we've connected with a few of them now. And so now when we see them in this episode go into battle, and some of them literally die already in this episode, we care about them. We're attached to them emotionally. And, we really want to see what happens to them. And so, I don't know. To me, I think this episode is so impressive from a direction standpoint. There's some great battle sequences as well. Damian Lewis is so good in this, as Richard Winter, and I think he does a really good job in this episode. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this is the best episode of Band of Brothers to me. Why We Fight is close, is earlier on the list. But, I just think this one really popped everything off. In such a really beautiful and haunting way at the same time. So, easily a top 5 for me. Love this episode of Band of Brothers, and obviously love the series as a whole. All right, the top 4. Number 4, Breaking Bad, Season 5, Episode 16, titled Felina. The series finale of Breaking Bad. To me, this is the best series finale of any show of all time that I have seen. Breaking Bad is my favorite show of all time, and this is the best finale. And also, I do think it has the best pilot, so there you go. There's not a whole lot to say about this that hasn't already been said. It's what I've been talking about as for finales, right? It's tying up all the loose ends. The only loose end that is left in this finale episode is Jesse, right? Where is Jesse going? What is going to happen there? Of course, they've done El Camino, the movie now, since that kind of explains and kind of fills in that gap. But even then, it's an okay thing to leave open. Like, I think it's a very satisfying thing to leave open. You don't need El Camino, right, to kind of answer the question of what would happen to him. It almost is more effective by leaving it open because of what has happened to Jesse and what we have witnessed over this time of season 5, especially what happens to him in these last couple episodes, and to just know that he's free, to know that he is in a car driving away from the scene and he's free. It's just such a satisfying conclusion for that character, even if it's still a little open-ended. And everything else is tied up so perfectly in this episode. Gretchen and Elliot, Walt gets, his revenge on them and gets them to keep his money. We get an amazing scene with Skyler and Walt where he admits that he was doing it for himself and not the family, which really brings together like the entire theme of the show and completes his arc as a character that we've been witnessing this entire time, and to hear him finally admit that, unbelievable, and just a really emotional scene between them two. And then, of course, the shootout at the compound, right, with Jack, and that whole sequence that plays out, so satisfying. Again, it's one of these moments where we see Walt fitting this gun in his trunk, and we're like, what's going on here? We don't really know. Similar to something like Better Call Saul Season 6, like I talked about. And, of course, brilliant writing. Vince Gilligan here pays it off. Of course, he's setting up this contraption in the trunk of his car, and it ends up killing Jack, and he's able to essentially rescue Jesse from their group there, and let him go. And an amazing scene between Jesse and him to end where, Jesse could have killed him and actually lets him live. Satisfying ending. And then, of course, to me, one of the most iconic scenes in television history is Walt, going in the meth lab there in his final moments when he's bleeding out. And then we get, the Baby Blue, right? My Baby Blue, the song playing there. And then he falls down on the ground, and then the police come in at the very end. So when I watched that finale for the first time, I don't know, it was like a out-of-body experience, it was just an insane ending to that, series, and I just think it was perfectly executed. So, yeah, can't say enough about that finale there for Breaking Bad. All right, number 3, it is going to be Succession, Season 4, Episode 3, Connor's Wedding. I will admit, maybe this is recency bias. This episode only came out in 2023, so it's only been a couple years now. But I think this truly belongs here. It is one of the best episodes in TV history. Just the achievement that they were able to do with this episode. Obviously, the build up to this with Logan, there was maybe just the hints of foreshadowing of what was going to happen here. And, spoiler alert, but, his death in this episode. And it's so good, it's so effective because of almost how shocking it is, right? Because, again, there's little foreshadowing bits in the first couple episodes of this season, but to do something like this in episode 3, nobody expected this, right? Nobody expected them to actually do this and to kill him off. And even in the first 5 minutes of this episode, it seems like a completely normal episode of Succession. Logan's kind of going at Roman a little bit, and he gets on the plane, and it seems like a very normal episode, and then completely falls out. And the entire rest of the episode is almost feels, and in some ways some of the sequences are, basically this one-take reaction to his death and what impact that has on, Roman, Connor, Kendall, and Shiv, right? And it's their reaction to this event that has happened. And it's so effective because it's so real. It's so authentic, right? It's not the fact that, the whole season we've been building up this thing, and then in the finale, this character dies, and then it's a big death, right? This is really echoing real life in the way that this happens, in the way that people lose their loved ones so suddenly like this. Something like a heart attack, I think, is what Logan suffers. And boom, it just happens, right, out of nowhere. And then we're kind of left of the reaction. So some of the best acting I've ever seen, right? I mean, Jeremy Strong, Kieran Culkin, Sarah Snook, Alan Ruck, even Matthew McFadyen is great. The reactions, the rawness, the realness to these performances is so impressive. Again, some of the sequences are literally shot in one take. Mark Mylod, amazing stuff there. The dialogue is just so real, feels so authentic to these characters. It avoids the kind of melodrama of oh my God, he's dead, and stuff like this. But that doesn't fit these characters in Succession. These kids are damaged, right? They've been affected by Logan in so many ways over all these years. And so, yeah, they're going to react in different ways to his death. And they just capture that so well in the episode. So I can't say enough about this episode of TV. It's just an unbelievable, feat that they were able to pull this off in this episode and kind of pull off this unbelievably shocking, twist and have it play out this well and this effective. So, yeah, I'm maybe it's a little recency bias, but it's an amazing episode nonetheless. My number 2 episode is The Sopranos, Season 4, Episode 13, titled Whitecaps. So to me, this is the best episode of The Sopranos. And talking about acting in that Succession episode, I think this is some of the best acting that we've ever seen in TV history from Edie Falco and James Gandolfini. Just in general, like throughout the course of the show, I think it's like two of the best performances in TV history. But particularly this episode really is the whole time throughout the show we've seen Tony having these affairs and hurting Edie Falco's character, right? Hurting her in ways that, she maybe was a little naive to, maybe, or didn't quite know about. But at this point, Carmela, she pretty much knows what's going on, or kind of has a hint at what's going on. And of course, it's this episode where he takes the family to the place. Whitecaps, right, is the name of the cottage or whatever he's buying or he wants to buy. And then she gets the phone call, I think about halfway through the episode or something like that, that from one of Tony's Gumars, right, or mistresses, whatever you want to call her. And then it just ensues from there. Specifically that one sequence where they are basically just walking through the entire house and Tony is destroying everything, like throwing things at her. She's yelling at him, throwing things at him. Like, that is some of the best acting, some of the just writing, like, just feels so real. It's just unbelievable what they were able to pull off in those sequences together. It's really just this culmination of everything that has been developing in that relationship, in the family dynamic between Tony and Carmela, and AJ and Meadow, and I don't know, it just was a really satisfying way to bring all of that together in this episode. And then, of course, she reveals that she was, with Furio and having a relationship with him. So that kind of really gets at Tony. And then towards the end of the episode, we finally get the realizer. Tony really realizes that this is not going to work and he does have to leave the house. And they kind of split up, right, for the first time in the show. And this whole dynamic of the family has really been torn apart. So, yeah, I just think it's an amazing episode of TV from the beginning to the end, and specifically those few sequences in there. It's just some of the best acting, some of the best writing that we've ever seen in TV. So, to me, and probably the best finale, right, of any Sopranos season. Just really, really effective. So, yeah, that's my number 2 there with The Sopranos. All right, we've done it. We've reached number 1, and that is Breaking Bad, Season 5, Episode 14, titled Ozymandias. So, according to IMDb top TV episodes, I'm correct with this one, apparently, because I think this is literally the number 1 rated episode of TV on IMDb as well. And I agree, this episode is the best in TV. It was close, but this was a pretty clear top episode to me as number 1. So, just an amazing episode of TV. The beginning of this episode, the way it looks, and the way that Walt has been betrayed by Jesse, and they've set this all up that Hank and Gomi are now, en route basically to Walt. They've tracked him to where the money is, and so now they've finally been able to catch him in the act. He's finally going to have to face the consequences of all of his actions so far that he's made. And then it plays out. They actually arrest him. It's a surreal sequence that plays out. Like, we've actually seen Walt finally get caught, and Hank is the one to do it. Hank is the one to put him in cuffs, put him in the back of the truck, and, he's finally done. He's finally arrested. Then the twist that happens is insane, right? Jack and the crew show up, as he's called Jack, right? But we don't really think he's actually going to show up, and then he does. And the thing that ensues, the shootout that happens, and it's just unreal to watch this all happen. It's so exhilarating, right? The shootout happens, And then, of course, the unbelievably iconic scene, with Hank on the ground and Jack essentially executing him, right? That amazing line of, Walt, you're the smartest guy I know, but something along the lines of, but you'd be dumb, to think that he didn't already make up his mind, 10 minutes ago or whatever. And then he says, do what you got to do. And then Jack kills Hank. So when I watched that for the first time, I was just jaw on the floor. I was just blown away by what just happened, to see Hank actually die and then to see Walt's reaction, him fall to the ground. It's just iconic in TV history. It will go down and be remembered forever, I think. It's just unbelievable moment. And then, of course, Walt ratting out Jesse, who's hiding under the car, and that whole sequence that plays out. It's just an amazing episode from where we start off in the beginning to where we end. And it just completely changes everything. To that point, we really think that Walt's been caught. We have 2 more episodes in the season now, and that's kind of just what's happened. He's finally facing his consequences. And then by the end of the episode, we're completely at a different point where he's once again going to get away with this. Hank is now dead. No one else knows about this. Jesse's been caught and been basically taken as a slave, cook for Jack and his crew. And now he, I think it ends with him rolling the barrel. And then what he calls the vacuum guy, of course, right? And that's how we end. So, just from start to finish as an episode of TV, unbelievable what they were able to achieve and how well they were able to do it. It's just amazing. It's amazing. So it's a great episode. We get another one as the series finale just a couple episodes later. But this one really stands out to me as the best TV episode of all time. So anyways, that will just about do it for this one. My top 50 episodes of all time. Love to hear your guys' thoughts, as I said, off the top of this list. And what are some of yours? If you agree or disagree with some of mine, love to hear your thoughts. And really had fun putting this one together. It's really great. And, as I watch more shows, maybe I'll change my list up a little bit, right? Put some episodes from those shows in here. But as it stands, that'll do it for my top 50 episodes. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Stay tuned to the channel for some more reviews coming up in the next little bit. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you then in my next video.